Good morning, good evening, or wherever you are in the world. Hello. Some of you are already in the new year. I see Jeff Whitty in chat. Welcome. I was running a little behind this morning, so you'll have to forgive me. This is the webcam, not the good camera. It's because I'm eating my breakfast off to the side here, and the good camera is set up because today we're going to be flipping through the beta. I've got a hard copy here, and I'm really excited. So I hope everybody's doing good this morning, and I hope everybody's going to have a good year. I see my little brother in chat who's asking me to feed him. So I'm going to be hanging out on here for a couple hours in total today. First, we're going to do a quick AMA because we had some AMA questions that came in before the stream in the TFE Discord server. Then I'm going to open up the book and we're going to walk through the beta and everything that went into this PDF. Backers got the beta 1 hour ago. That's when I sent it out, so some folks have already started flipping through it. And yeah, really excited. How's the audio, everybody? Is the audio coming through okay? It's something I always struggle with, getting my audio levels good. So hopefully they sound all right. Excuse me. Sounds good. Okay, great. So first I'm going to do some AMA. Sounds all right. Okay. We've got only a handful of these, so this shouldn't take super long. So, first one was from Cybrock said, how do you feel about wounds? We all know the answer to that, so I won't take up our precious time today talking about wounds. But y'all know. Let's see. Isaac says, now that you're actually putting the work in, how realistic is the timeline you've laid out? We didn't quite make it to the stretch goal of having adventures designed by Amy and Iffy and others. Are there still in the works for a paid release instead of inclusion with the Kickstarter rewards? Excuse me. So timeline is still looking good. The releasing the beta today was the last day to release the beta before I would technically be behind. As I said in the Kickstarter that the beta PDF would be out this year by the end of December. And it is the morning of the last day of the year, my time. So we hit that. What we're going to be checking in on in January is where all the artists are at with their various projects. Some were able to dedicate a lot of time right after the Kickstarter began, or Kickstarter ended. Others had to wrap up other clients first before they could really put a ton of time into this project. And that's really what's going to control the deliverability of our original timeline. But it's looking good. The artists are awesome and have completed a ton of work already. And I'll be showing some new stuff off on today's stream as well that we got in. So things are looking good. Adventure-wise, yes, long story short, Amy is still super down to work with us. And we actually just met with her a couple weeks ago, me and Daniel. And so she's still super down. And the other adventure writers are also still super down. It's we're figuring out what the scope of that is going to look like and what sort of budget we can dedicate to it. But the plan is to have content available for people adventure-wise when the hard copies are being sent out, when the game's actually done. We want there to be a body of adventures. What they look like and how free or expensive they'll be will have to be determined. But yes, that is still the plan, and it's a big part of what my planning is going to be in January, is figuring out a lot of that stuff. Oh, good questions, Isaac. Lucian asks, with launching a game like this, what would you do differently next time? What would you keep the same? I'm learning a lot about my own time management. About such things because I still have my day job, right? This is all done like after I'm done with my day job mostly. So I think I would space things out a little bit more. I would have more of the beta done going into the Kickstarter so that I could release that quicker. I'd love for like Kickstarter complete beta release, like right just when the Kickstarter's done. I just didn't have that all ready to go. And that last like 10 to 15% of like production of that book took a lot of hours to actually get it to where it was. Because the game's been playable for ages now, right? Years. It's just getting it into that beta structure took a hot minute. So that's what I would do differently. I'd be more prepared for my Kickstarter. I felt like I was playing catch up to the Kickstarter and afterward. London asks, what path not taken would you like to revisit again someday? Oh, uh, randomless superhero role-playing game in the vague direction of Marvel Universe role-playing game. I've had ideas for this for like years and years now, because I love Merpig, even though it's terrible, and I want to go back to that someday. So that's something I'd like to revisit someday. Dave Carroll asks, what tips can you provide designers on ensuring accessibility and inclusivity in their own games? Ooh, that's a cool question. So on the accessibility front, work with a professional, honestly. I am not good at it. I don't know what to do with like how to make a PDF accessible and how to make a document easy to understand. I do my best, but I'm working with a layout designer for the finals, right, for the actual book that's going to help accomplish that, right? Guide me through what I need to do to make that happen. Like hyperlinks, font selection, all that stuff I am ignorant of. And that's why I'm working with somebody who is not, somebody who knows and can help me. And our layout designer, Jenna, is awesome. Super cool. So I'm really excited. And, we'll show off some of the mock-ups that we have for the layouts a little later. Six asks, what darlings were killed for TFE and why were they killed? Yeah. So I don't know if Daniel's in the chat, the other designer who works on the game. Y'all probably know Daniel at this point. The game was way crunchier than it was right now in its earlier stages. So much of the crunch, though, was crunch outside of the actual gameplay. So, pardon me, I'm going to be eating some of my oatmeal here on stream, because I have not eaten my breakfast yet. So, my game had a lot of crunch, numerical crunch, that you did in character preparation and character advancement. There were something like 40 different skills you could have, and each one actually had something like, it was like 30 ranks in total, like small increments. So there was a lot of calculation being done between sessions. And there was just a lot of work to maintain a character that wasn't translating into engaging gameplay moments. It was a classic, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. You were fiddling so much with lots of little numbers that didn't matter between like gameplay sessions. They just weren't impactful. The decisions didn't feel interesting. The progress was too slow. And so I had this whole like robust character build structure that ended up being slashed entirely. And I spent weeks on it, just building it out and mocking it up and making layouts for it. And we ended up ditching it entirely. And much of that was because Daniel helped reveal that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. That's like one of Daniel's greatest contributions, is helping me find when I'm squeezing a rock and nothing's coming out. I do plan on doing a video showing all the different character sheets that I've built over the years for my game and how the game's evolved along with it. So there will be a dedicated video on that at one point. One Side asks, while building a community, what would you say is your conditions set to move to the next stage of your plan? And then he asks a couple other questions. What are the next phases of your TTRPG community development? Okay, there's a couple. So I'll start with the first question. Building a community, this is the first time I've ever tried to do something like this, and it's gone very well. And I'm not sure what the next phases are going forward. But I will say one of the watershed moments or big moments was when I realized I needed moderators. That was a big change for me in how I approached the community. I was doing everything myself, basically, for most of the time of the Discord server's existence, for example. And it just became too much. There was too much activity, and everybody's like really cool in the server, but it still takes oversight, right? Because there's almost 900 people in the server and a lot of very active people. So needing help to get it running was a big moment. I'm not sure what the next phase is. Honestly, entering this beta phase for my game, where we see if the dedicated TFE part of that community starts to flourish, as opposed to the greater just game design community. I do want to become more involved in other people's games in the future if I have time. I'd love to have more time because I want to play test all these games that I'm talking with people about. So that would be a big thing. But I'm kind of making it up as I go in that regard for community building, figuring it out as I go. That kind of answered the next phases of the community development. I'd love to get more involved in the tabletop community spotlight scene again. I know folks have taken it over for me, and they've done for me and Zarek, and done a great job. But it'd be super cool for me and Zarek to get back into it and be part of that process once again in some way. How would you define success, and what areas are you successful or not? I would say I have defined success by getting funded, right? This exists in this beta form because I got funded. We reached our funding goal and then some, and we hit a stretch goal even, and got some padding money, which will help us with extra artwork and other things. So I'd consider that a success for me, but everybody's got to determine a success in their own metrics. Would I have liked to have made $500,000 and therefore quit my day job and done this full time? Sure. But that's okay. That's not what I define my success as. I'm defining success as making my game in the premium, high quality version that I envision it, right? Full of artwork, like high quality artwork too. Just good production value, a big hardcover book with the bookmark ribbon, just like a high quality product. Getting that out to people and having it exist in the world would be amazing. What would you say to other community members that you assess is a weakness in their own self-assessment or designer journey? Oh, that's a really interesting question. Okay, so I've got something for all of you designers out there. As I read almost every conversation in my server, and I try to keep up as best I can in the big design server. What I will say is that a lot of designers think of a new gameplay aspect they would like to have in their game. A new subsystem, a magic system, a piloting system, a hacking system. And they build these systems as an island where they develop their own process to handle that situation. And what this results in is a game that feels like you're playing a different game when you're in this mode of play, a different game when you're in this mode of play, and a different game when you're in this mode of play. And that makes a game less cohesive and less elegant, when instead people should be thinking of how they can use their core structures to enable those other gameplay moments, right? Rather than making each one a bespoke structure. Even if you're making a very simulationist type game, even if there's a lot of simulation heavy, it's about making the whole game feel like it's one system with different applications rather than bespoke blocks of code almost, right? That's something I see a lot of, where people start building out a magic system completely divorced of their core system. And it doesn't make that structure feel as cohesive. So this is something I see a lot, and something people should consider. If your core resolution structures can't facilitate these other gameplay modes, you'll have to look at that core resolution structure rather than just tacking things on that don't feel plugged in. That's something I catch myself doing as well. So that's something I would say I see a lot of. People making bespoke subsystems rather than, something that's fully integrated. Okay, next one. Fortunato asks, what aspects of the game have changed the most from your original concept? Would you share some details on that? Well, the biggest thing is that there were no wounds originally. The game used stamina and vitality, a dual hit point structure where you had a quickly refreshing stamina pool and then a more difficult to recover vitality pool underneath it that the stamina protected. Is pretty standard stuff for a dual hit point structure. So things like poisons and stuff would affect your vitality directly. And if you basically took damage to your vitality, you went with an attack to a limb, it would disable that limb. And so I had limb targeting from the very beginning, but I didn't actually have a wound structure. Like, it wasn't wounds, it was hit points. And that's the biggest difference. The use of a D10 and like that I didn't want dual attributes, primarily just like a skill test, simple math, was always there. Pretty much from the beginning, but it was actually the health abstraction that changed the most. And it was only when I figured out my wound structure that I felt like the game was now worth playing, like it was worth existing. Now let's see, Vidaria says, when it comes to mysticism and magic in TFE, where you draw the line between discrete mechanics and the need for mystery and uncertainty. I love a little bit of empty space in game design and lore explanation. So I prefer to, so mechanics can work one way, but the way we explain that in fiction could be different. And I like presenting the way magic or mysticism works through the lens of the people in that world. What do they think about that? So specifically for Clockworld, now that the beta's out, we can like talk specifics. There's the Church of Ashes, which is one of the most predominant faiths in the Ruination now, and it's very obviously inspired by Catholicism. You know, it's making, or Protestantism maybe more specifically, a little bit of both. And there's a question of when you take an edge like Castigate, which lets you turn undead, basically, to use a D&D term. What's happening there? Are you channeling the purifying light itself? Like, what's going on there? What's the explanation for this? Well, the Church of Ashes folk believe that it is their faith that is doing this, that gives them that power. You don't have to be a Church of Ashes character to take that edge, though. An occultist could be using their an unholy symbol, or not even a holy symbol. You just have to have a ritual kit equipped. They could be etching a pentagram in the air to drive away the undead, and they're doing it like a science, not based on faith. And it's still working. In fiction, it still works. And I like to leave a little bit of that ambiguous. Elsewhere is a reflection of our life, and it draws on our world and our minds and our beliefs. And so all of this is connected to Elsewhere in some greater or lesser extent, but I purposely leave that a little ambiguous. So that's kind of my answer there. I like ambiguity because to define is to make mundane. That's a big... I've used that before. You know, if you lay it all out like a science, it can become very mundane, and I don't want that. And so as you're reading the beta, you'll see there's a lot of empty space in the explanation for certain things, because I want you, as you're running a game and exploring it, to answer that like together, you know, and explore that. Because I think that's way more exciting. I was running behind this morning because I went to get coffee with my baby brother at what is the best coffee shop in our town. He says him is delicious. So apologies again for eating. And I'll now catch up on chat. Okay. Times New Roman font size 60. I just saw. Phase Rip, yeah. Are there any secret characters not announced as part of the beta? No. What's up? Beta looks great. Thank you. About accessibility. Well-made PDFs. Oh, absolutely. Everything in the final PDF is going to be like hyperlinked. So you can like, you know, when it mentions another monster in a different monster's stat block, it takes you right to it. Let's see. Oh, hey, Elder Goblin Games. Hey, Jorban. Oh, Hugh asks, okay, do you have a favorite threat? It's probably the Blood Oilers. They're the first one I wrote. I wrote those over 10 years ago, the original one. It's amazing. I love them. It's why I use them everywhere. They're absolutely lovely. I'm all about the Blood Oilers. They're the poster boy of this game, and they tick all the boxes I love. They're like Terminator and zombie and body horror, and it's just like I love grabby enemies too, and they steal people. And for those of you looking at the beta, you know, you'll notice that the default configuration of like syringe, chainsaw, and grabby hand is only one configuration. You can customize their limbs, and I think there's 6 or 7 limb options. You just mix and match them per blood oiler. And I know when I've told people that, yeah, one of the options is basically a 60-foot long barbed wire tentacle, they're like, well, that's horrible, and I just smile. So it's probably Blood Oilers. They've been my favorite for many years. Let's see here. Oh, great art speaks for itself. Yeah, the art really makes it. Hey, there's Daniel. Oh, yeah, Twice Dead Mage saying a game with multiple personalities. Yeah, I'm really guilty of this too. When I was sketching out some ideas, my idea book for future TFE settings, and I was sketching out some ideas for some future settings and some magic systems, I was guilty of this as well, and I was making something that wasn't cohering with the existing TFE structure. And it was fun, but it's, you know, probably not going to be the one I go. Oh, Arthur's in chat. So Concept Arthur's in chat. He made the map of the Ruination, the incredible map, and we're going to be working with him on some other projects not too long from now, we hope. We've been talking. But he asks, what reasons made you choose Western as the first setting? Simply because I love it. There's no other reason. I love Westerns and I love Weird West. That's it. That's it, really. And honestly, I just wasn't... I didn't really dig at the time when I started on this, I really didn't dig the available Weird West games available. They just didn't quite tick all the boxes I wanted. And so I had to make my own. But yeah, I just love Westerns. It's probably my favorite genre apart from like action horror and action and genre. I love Westerns so much. Let's see here. Jordan says, are there any TFE mechanics that haven't gotten much attention that you had fun coming up with? Oh, that haven't gotten much attention. The luck system, I know, kind of gets talked about a little bit. I love the way that works, and I'm really happy with it. I would say that one. The character creation process is something that I'm also really happy with, that we haven't really had a chance to show people publicly as much, simply because we've only been showing them, like quick start stuff, pre-gens and limited stuff. But, for those who have their copy of their beta open, you'll see there's it's something like a third of this book is character build options. I love this big open-ended character creation process that forces you, or it involves you in the world, though, through the character creation process. And when people first make their character, it feels a little weird. That's like common feedback. It takes them a while to make their first character because there's a lot of options and you have to familiarize yourself with this approach. Then like the second character goes super fast. Like, and all subsequent characters go really fast afterward. But the way that you make the character, no matter what approach you take, you can't help but be plugged into the world. And it feels really good. It's something that I'd always balked at in D&D primarily, is that I'd make this character in a vacuum that doesn't feel connected to the world, right? I could choose to be a human fighter with a sailor background, but it didn't like plug me in anywhere. I didn't feel like a sailor at all. It just gave me athletics skill proficiency or whatever, right? Like it didn't plug me in. And so the process in Clockworld or in Tales from Elsewhere games are all going to be like this. I feel like you get integrated into the story. Feels more alive. A good base lore and plenty of negative space is right for homebrew. Yeah, that's kind of my thinking. The lore, there's a big lore section in this book, but it's presented as a starting point, not as the end. Star Trek board in the Wild West. Yeah, exactly. Red Richards in chat. Every time I run an oiler with a ranged option, the players shake in fear. Mwahaha. Exactly. Look, because one of the other options is a rail spike shooting gun that they have that like pins you to the walls. It's beautiful. Okay. Twice Dead Mage asks, question, what are you most proud of in Clockworld? Oh, proud of? The way the wound system, like the way the violence is resolved. I just love it. I love the feeling of it. I love playing it as a player. I love running it as a GM. I just love it. I love the violence of it. Luco asks, what sort of license do you aim TFE to have for third-party content? We actually already have this very thoroughly planned out. We're going to be making more official announcements in January. Long story short, super permissive open license with a free SRD. We want to have no barriers for anybody to make adventures or expansions or anything to the game. It's going to have the usual limitations like, hey, you can't reprint our artwork or like the stat blocks of our monsters that are the only selling point of the book per se. Like, so you can't reprint what's in the book, but adding things to it, referencing what's in the book by name, all that's totally fine. We just, there's like the intellectual property aspect, but the game system that lies underneath it is going to be open and free for people. Oh, I'm getting some audio fuzziness. Oh, maybe I'm too far away. Weird static. I keep also accidentally hitting it with my hand. So that could be it. So yeah, long story short, the core resolution structures of a Tales from Elsewhere game are going to be freely accessible and usable in your own creations, whether that be adventures or expansions. We'll have details coming up. in the next month or so. Redder says, I nailed a guy to the floor with a rail spike so the oiler could ominously walk up to them in the last game I ran. Love it. Yeah, and Daniel's saying we're excited for people to actually get into the lore in the world. Yeah, because we haven't really presented a lot. We're trying to keep some stuff back for the beta. Twice dead. Imagine a Gatling gun stuck in their chest, overheating barrels, and the oily bastard catches on fire. I love it. Let me know if the audio's any better now. I keep accidentally hitting it because I gesticulate so much. Oh, I think your mic is having issues. Test, test. How's the mic coming through now? It's getting worse. Oh. How's this sound now, y'all? Any better? Test, test, test. Still getting lots of static. Much better. You know, I did the classic, I unplugged it and plugged it back in. You know, that'll do. Okay, what was I rambling about? Let's, see, yeah, Oatmeal Cam. I had to switch some camera stuff for a moment. Let me catch back up on the chat here. Like something is rubbing. You know, I keep accidentally hitting the mic, and I bet I'm like messing with the plugin. Oh, John Fielder, any chance you're going to do assets for Roll20? Yeah, so we haven't actually officially announced this, but I will mention it now. We'll be releasing a bunch of maps and tokens for free, possibly, or maybe for like $1. We haven't had the specific. Once we have more art in, basically we're going to be taking all of the awesome art that we've gotten and making them into tons of tokens. So there will be digital assets available for people for a lot of our adventures that we're producing as well. So yes, there will be VTT assets that we're going to be releasing one thing at a time. But yeah, the quick start packet that you can access through the website actually has some tokens and maps already, a handful for those that may want to grab them. You can find that on the website. But I think signing up for our newsletter gives you access. Okay, so let's see here. Just write the words on cards and hold them up. Now you have to add a monster that removes people's ability to speak. Hey, Trek. Oh, that's already in the game. Don't you worry about that. There's a number of things that can interfere with your ability to speak, like the Arizona tenor, which, you know, can cause you to choke on your own blood. Can't really speak when that happens. That's one example. The Shrike can turn you into a permanently silent ghoul that is never free from death, impaled forever on its spikes, that kind of thing. Okay. I apologize again. I need to keep my strength up. I got to eat. Okay. And that is why Peter is the most employed YouTuber. Turn off, turn back on. I'm just catching up here. So we'll be wrapping up the this Q&A portion briefly while I finish the last bites of some of my breakfast here, and we'll go into the flipping through the rule book in just a sec. But before we do, I wanted to show off to y'all a couple pieces of artwork we had just gotten in. And Twin Steel catches the Hyperion reference. That's right. So I'll show off a couple pieces of artwork. We one of the artists we started working with only post Kickstarter campaign was Nathan Anderson, incredibly talented, and we got in some color pieces from him, and I'm just going to share it with y'all. He is working on sets of threats currently, and so I'm going to put them up on my screen. Ooh, some quick advice for monster design. Interestingly, in the beta, there's some guidance, but about think of the horror. You know, not what the monster like, not even the story of the monster first, but think of what would be gnarly, like, and scary first. Why would the players be intimidated or worried about their success or failure when facing this creature? I joke about this before. Like, I could die a happy man without another goblin stat block. I don't need a lot of that. So that's one thing to always think about, is like, where's the horror come from? Even if you're not making a horror game, think of like where the tension comes from, where the threat comes from. I call them threats in the game, in the rule book, because that's the idea. They threaten the players in some manner. How do they do that? That is a really good thing to start. With any creative process, though, like monster design, honestly, read lots of books. I know it's kind of a cliche to say. When it comes to lore creation, world building, and monster design, just reading lots of books. You'll get so inspired by all the other twisted stuff you see out there. It really helps. Okay, let's see if I can switch this. Oh, that's got oatmeal cam there. No, hold on, y'all. Let me fix this. It's the wrong camera. I am a professional streamer. Y'all don't need to see more of my breakfast. I mean, not gonna lie, this is a delicious breakfast. I love oatmeal. Oatmeal is healthy and delicious. You add some cinnamon, maybe a little maple syrup in it. Everybody loves the oatmeal cam. Right, there's not much left of the oatmeal now, though, you know? It's almost out. Take another bite of that. It's just a 5-hour stream of him eating oatmeal. You know, the last time I had a whiskey drinking on camera, and this slightly... people said the ASMR of it was really pleasing, of me like pouring the whiskey. So, okay, I'll talk a little bit about some of the art I'm going to show here. So this is a Church of Ashes Inquisitor, and I just love all the detail that this artist used. So I've talked about this before. I come from an era of RPG books, the 3rd edition era of D&D, where there wasn't a single artistic style that all art used, where it all looks like it was done by the same artist. That's a very modern thing in role-playing games, and that's very cool, don't get me wrong. I, though, love seeing different artists' interpretations of that same world, all staying within the same vibe, but I like to explore these different styles, and I think it creates some variation, and I love to let artists loose, not telling them you have to copy this other artist's, right? Like, show me your vision. And so all of the artists we're working with have a different take on the world, and I didn't tell them to change their art style. I picked them for their art style. So the artist that is doing these threats, these monsters, their stuff looks different than Nary's, the one who did the Blood Oiler, right? But they're both beautiful and awesome, and they're both very Clockworld. Same thing, and they're different from the backstory elements. So I love art variation, and we have Jeff in the chat too. The equipment section is done by a different artist with his own style, and Jeff was picked because I loved his style. Anyway, So yeah, this is a Church of Ashes Inquisitor. Now the Church of Ashes aren't an antagonistic group per se, but you could still run afoul of them and have to fight them potentially, and they're very dangerous. And Nathan, the artist that did this, did a really cool job because he specifically chose outdated looking clothes. So Clockworld is ostensibly the 1890s in its evocation, but he thought the Inquisitor would be dressed in more of the puritanical style, from which would be 100 years prior, right? Or more. So very cool artistic take there. So really love this design. He just, he doesn't look, he looks sinister, which is great. And he's got a rifle and a sword, which is uncommon to see. We've also got here cultists. These would be your classic, cult members. These would be the Cult of Exodus, which is in the lore book in the beta. And this would be like a basic, initiate in the cult, as well as like an abomination. Peter Cast's art validation is yeah, and Red, who's in chat right now, also has his own interpretation, and he's doing art for the book. So these cultists just are so cool looking. Like the look on this guy's face, the wild eyes he has, the little blood splatters. There's just so much great detail here. And the cultist abomination or prophet, this could work for either of them because they're both no longer people, really. Oh, it's a little bit inconvenient the way this is showing it on the stream. Let's see if I can make this zoom in a little better. Yeah, it's only marginally better. So you can see that he's wearing a mask of a human face. And underneath there's something wriggling and tentacly with weird eyes. That's because these are now horrors that are no longer human, right? Once you've been in this cult for long enough, you lose your humanity and start becoming a horror yourself. So it's very cool. Now we have a bounty hunter. So one of the threats in the book is a bounty hunter. And the bounty hunter is like just as good. The way I would describe it is the bounty hunter as a threat is just as deadly as the players are with guns, if not a little bit more. And which the players are very deadly with their guns. So if you face an NPC, you face a threat that has a coach gun, a buffalo rifle, and 2 revolvers, and effectively has like edges for each of them and special ammo in each, they're super deadly. So the bounty hunter is like a veteran, monster slayer and bounty hunter. And they're just like a badass with some guns. And so my direction to the artist on this was like, I want a grizzled sort of like, hard looking woman that, clearly has seen some shit. And so I just love the expression on her face and her outfit. All the little details are just so good. There's even, let me see if I can move the stream to show it. There's notches that he added on her rifle, which is so good. Love all the little details. Yeah, just so much fun detail with this character. Her sort of eclectic outfit is really fun. And then last, the last set that we had gotten in, these are 100 Blue Bandits, the classic bandits in the setting. And again, there's so much character he puts into these, even though they're just bandits, right? There's a lot of fun detail on each of them. It's not zooming in super well. Like the one on this side has sheriff badges, like trophies, right? Like they've killed marshals and sheriffs before, and they've collected their badges. And this guy has that sort of like I didn't hear no bell kind of look, right, where he's all shot up and has his knife out and is ready to fight. And this guy over here has what looks like a piece of metal from a sign for whiskey, like a whiskey, like metal barrel or something. It's great. Like, and he's made it into a makeshift breastplate with the classic 6-shooter, and he also has a bloody knife. But they look like they've been banged up. The one on the bottom here, there's blood on his spurs, which is really a fun detail. Like, did he kick somebody? Has he been mistreating his horse? He's a bad guy. So I just love the grit and detail on all of this. It's just beautiful. So, and ponchos, ponchos are a sign that the bounty hunter is deadly. That's right. Yeah, so these just came in from Nathan, and they're awesome. He's doing a bunch of the threats in the book, just a ton of them. And they're all just absolutely gorgeous pieces of work. Just super fun stuff. So that's just a little quick art preview for y'all. So I need to move my food out of the way, and we will, time to walk through the beta itself. I've got a printed hard copy here. So let me reorganize. We'll have to lose the oatmeal cam, sadly, as it's going to be replaced by beta cam. So sorry, pardon all the dropping of silverware here. Sorry beta oatmeal cam enjoyers. We're switching modes. Okay, let's get set up here. And it's awesome that y'all are hanging out here, but I love that so many people are in here and chat. Got to go to see you later, Jordan. Have a good New Year, buddy. No oatmeal anyway, so I'm out. Okay, let's get set up on... Oh, you get a preview. That's an outdated oatmeal cam there. That is not accurate. I've got to turn it on. Let's see. Oh no, it's upside down. Okay, hold on. This keeps happening. Camera, I've turned off auto rotate and it still attempts to flip itself. So hold please while I fiddle with this. There we go. Okay, we're making progress. Oh, I had it and then it left. Yeah, I could flip it in OBS. It's frustrating because I had this all set up last night, and now it's coming apart at the seams as I rifle through things, and you can see me awkwardly doing so. Yeah, I think I'll just flip it in OBS rather than spend all morning fiddling with it. Hold, please. My camera's falling over here, actually. Camera stand is literally falling over in the background from the angle that I'm doing. Okay, let's flip it in OBS. Now we got to see if Peter knows how to do that. Hold on. There we go. Oh, I had it and then it was gone. Oh boy. Yeah, my camera stand's now falling over from the weight of my phone. Real professional stream we got going on here, y'all. So bear with me while I get this started. Most awkward intermission. My goodness. Okay. I just need to flip it over now. It's not falling over. Let's see here. Where's that? That is phone camera. Now to flip it over. Let's see. Flip vertically. Oh, that reverses it though, doesn't it? Yeah, that reverses it. So we can't do that. No, I don't have a GoPro. This is my phone. And this usually works super well. Let me see what I can do. Y'all are going to get some funny camera angles here for a moment. flip it over this way then. See if it does it. Hey, there we go. Just literally pick up the phone and like flip it over. Okay. Oh, just gotta move it slightly. Come on, come on. I feel like we had it here. Oh, sorry, my phone turned off. God. Oh boy. You know, I had this all tested yesterday and it was working super well. And of course I attempt to do it this morning and it is a nightmare. Such is the audio-visual curse. So hold please when my phone turns back on. I had placed the phone in the camera, put some oatmeal on it. I had put the phone power button on where the camera locks in and it turned it off. It's okay. The wonders of technology. We'll see if this is going to work correctly this time. I really need to get a permanent setup here one of these days rather than the hodgepodge makeshift that I use. Do we have it? We have it, folks. We're ready. Holy macaroni. What a challenge. Take a sip of my coffee. Want me to come over and hold the camera the whole time? You know, I was getting close to needing that. Okay. All right, so thanks for sticking out all the technical issues, y'all. I'm in position now for some a flip through of the book. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm not going to like read from the book. Oh, the camera fell down. But I'm going to be talking through what was included, why we included certain things, and just highlighting some stuff I think is cool. Why did this stay up just fine last night and now it falls over constantly? Hold, please. It's... Come on, stay up. All right. Just don't breathe on it, Peter. All right. Oh, see ya, Twin Steel. Just saw your comment there. All right, folks. So I'm going to flip through the beta. For those that don't have for those who do have the beta, you can follow along. But if you don't, consider this a big old preview. So we've got the beautiful, cover art here. This is obviously just, you know, the black and white, or the basic version, the draft version. You know, we've all seen the big red cover that we're going to have. That's gonna be awesome. So this may not be super clear in the PDF, but just like in Vagabond, the end sheets. The inner end sheets act as quick rules references. So the first 2 pages of the book, when you open it to those end sheets, is actually all the core rules. This is all you need to play right here. All the core structures. So when in doubt, if you want to look up really quick how to roll an injury roll, how many dice you need for certain things, the rank bonuses, how to do an attack, how tasks work, how you do rests, right? What the survivor advancement rules are. They're all right here, super quick. These are obviously like rough versions of all of these. they'll be improved upon later. A lot of these will be more like infographics in the end. But the intention is you won't have to hunt for core details like this. They're in the end sheets, and I was inspired a lot by Vagabond's rulebook for that. We've got your usual legal stuff, some thank yous, some credits that, you know, we won't need to go through, but you know, pretty normal stuff. We mentioned we don't use AI in any of this. Pretty normal things here. We have a table of contents. Now, it's not hyperlinked. It's not fancy. I believe it is all accurate still, unless I forgot to update it. Oh, no. Oh, I wonder if I did this after I sent it to print. Well, maybe, let's see, artifacts is on page 356. Okay, it's accurate. Whew. But eventually, obviously, the table of contents will be much more robust. There will be an index in the final book as well, you know, that indexes all the major terms. There's a letter to all of you, basically, about the beta rules, kind of a disclaimer. I put some content warnings in here, but y'all know I like horror, but I also believe horror should be fun. Talks about that here. As a lot of you know, I'm very interested in history and ethics. This is a really big letter about historical context and what it means to make a historical game, you know, and not ignore aspects of history. But it's a worthy read. This is a little bit more of a scholarly piece right here. These boxes show that there will be a lot of splashy art here, but this is the overview of the world. All the major beats you'd need to know to start playing and get the major vibe, because you don't have to read the whole, like, 40 pages of lore, or however, I forget how many pages there are, to get going. You just need these first few pages. And then from the quick start, you may recognize these. There's like the in-game testimonials from the perspective of people in the world about what Clockworld is, what it's like to be in the Ruination. Just a few pages of like more evocative immersion, and then you jump right to rules, because I don't want to bog people down too much with a lot of lore to at least get them started. They can always read the lore later. So we go into core game rules. So the game's rules are divided roughly into two different places. The core game rules gives you everything you need to play, and then there's a dedicated skills and actions chapter immediately following it that digs in more to that structure, and a dedicated injuries and conditions chapter that digs into that to expand out on those concepts. But you just need to read the core game rules to understand how to play. And there's something that there's actually guidance on how to read the rules, which I know seems kind of weird, but it talks about how to interpret rules, the formatting that's been chosen, and so forth. And a lot of this I want to replace with infographics, like character sizes, character types. These things I think are just way cleaner if there's a picture or a diagram. So this is a lot of prose. We're not going to read it. It's a lot of prose on how to play. But the intention is that this will be switched to something a little bit easier and quicker to ingest. What I tried to do, at least in the short term, is when you go to, so for example, skills, it has the page reference for you to go read the deep dive on skills, but each section has these little boxes that tells you the basic idea of everything you're going to read below. So if you need to quickly know how to roll a skill test, this box actually just says roll a d10 and add your skill bonus if the result is greater than or equal to the difficulty you succeed. That's the main thing you need. The rest of this expands out information and detail about this core structure. The hope being is that if you need to quickly find information about a core aspect, you can, and then you can keep reading for more of the philosophy, how to use the rule, and extra details. So that's the intention here. But this isn't super exciting stuff, so we're going to kind of just flip through it. It's, you know, all the different things you need to know how to play. And like I said, lots of diagrams here instead of prose. I wanted to get just basically all the rules at the start of the book so that before you start making a character, you know how the game works, right? You need to know a lot of this to contextualize character decisions, because the character creation is fairly robust. There's a whole page and a half on luck, or it's actually like a total of 2 pages on luck, because there's a lot to explain to people who maybe aren't used to meta currency use like this. And it's got examples, talks briefly on equipment, but equipment is expanded out in the equipment section. How resting works, survivor progression, pretty straightforward. It then has a big old example of play, which is attempting to show like a couple, like it's like 4 people, the storyteller and 3 players, and just like playing the game. And, they're running along in an oil refinery and they encounter a hazard and a blood oiler. And how do they resolve that? First rules and yeah, exactly, Odin, exactly, Zarek. First rules, then character creation. And if anybody has any questions as I go through this, I am glancing back at the stream, chat. So let me know if you have questions or you want me to stop and unpack something. So with all the basic rules under your belt, the skills and action sections deep dives all of that information. What are these skills? What do they mean? How do you use them in detail? So this first page unpacks the 11 skills, which are divided into 3 categories: body, mind, and combat. And how do you use them? But it also explains that, like so much in this game, this is a starting point. What's written here for how athletics works is not the only way you can use athletics. You're supposed to think creatively in that sort of OSR ideology, where don't limit yourself to what this action column says. Use the action column as your starting point to build off of. And that's kind of a theme throughout this. So then it digs into the types of actions that there are, explaining how you improvise actions to make up your own, how to adjudicate them as the GM when people suggest something that you didn't anticipate, and how to resolve that. Oh, see ya, Jeff. I know it's super late at night for you over there. So Happy New Year, buddy. Talks about how you can assist others with things, right? How assisting works. Digs into movement, different types of movement and how they work, like escaping from being grabbed, sneaking around. Goes into afflicts, gives you some example afflicts, like frightening people, influencing them, disarming them, restraining them. Attacks, how attacking works, right? Pretty normal stuff. And there's really not more information than you would have had in the quick start here. There's more explanation and example, because all of these are fairly straightforward. They're all just a skill test. Has tasks, examples of setbacks you can use, example ranks for various activities you can use, etc., etc. And then we go into conditions and injuries. Now, camera fell down again. So the end of the book, the end papers, is a quick reference of all the conditions in short form. And this space here is explaining out in more detail all of the conditions with like little in-game examples. These are the things that could be injury complications or some sort. Explains how injuries work, right? How to improvise injuries, based on player description. Talks about survivor death and the 3, they're kind of like death moves, right? To use a PBTA term, that when a character dies, they can choose to go out in a blaze of glory, have a legacy of blood in their equipment, or become a ghost. As a way to segue or to bridge that space between my character's dead but the session isn't over, how would I like to interact with the game in the short term before I finish making my next character? And then it has guidance on when a character dies, when somebody needs to make a new character, and how to integrate them back into the story with some inspiration tables, and whether or not to provide them catch-up mechanics, like do you give them a couple extra edges basically to help them catch up, some guidance there. It's pretty straightforward in that regard. Now the really fun part, making survivors. So we have this was in a public playtest, of course, but this is now all expanded out in full detail. So it goes through explaining the elements of what make a character, because in this game, you don't have a class and a race or whatever. You're just really composed of skills, traits, knowledge, edges, and equipment. And that's the mechanical pieces you have. And these are decided by your backstory elements. So it explains all of that, talks about the different edge categories, talks about connections, which isn't something that was in any of the public quick start items. These are optional ways of connecting yourself with other players at the table. To already have a connected backstory. Because the population of Clockworld is so small, chances are you've run into another one of the players or their family at one point in your life. Like, there's just not that many people. And so, you probably heard of this other person, right? So all the backstory elements provide inspiration on how to do that. You choose to engage with this or not. It walks through the steps of character creation here and how to do it. There is a page for when you are done making your character, you pick a hat. This is a temporary one. These are just Google images, like these are not ours. Actually Jeff, who just had to log off, our equipment artist, he's going to be doing an actual like drawing of all of the hats. But here's some fun hats to pick from. It then goes through creating one character from the entire process. So it talks about a person named Peter who's going to be making a gunslinger type character, and it walks through every decision of them filling out their survivor sheet with screenshots. Can we wear the hats at the table? Oh, I do have on this table, Peter owns what is number, where is it? Peter owns number 9 on this table, what is called a wide fedora style, which is something that was from the 19th century. So that's the kind Peter has. So this is not the classic cowboy hat. That'd be more like the cattleman. But in the late 19th century, you were naked without a hat oftentimes, right? Going out in public, you wore a hat. It was just part of day-to-day fashion. So hats were a big deal. And so I wanted to include some hats. Does this Peter character start with oatmeal rations? I'm never going to live down the oatmeal cam. I love it. But provisions could be oatmeal. Why not? Not the most convenient thing to eat out in the wilderness. So we go through basically making the pre-gen Mudo, one of the example characters in the book. We go through making that character, and it's a total of 4 pages because it's nice big screenshots. It explains each step and then shows their survivor sheet at the end. I know, yeah, if you didn't have sunglasses, you needed a hat to cover your eyes. There's this really big explanation in an attempt to make creating your first character a little bit less painful, and a little bit... the Right Hunter? Yeah, the style of equipment for the whole book is the old Sears catalog styles. Absolutely. That's the whole vibe that it's going to be. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, and then it shows the completed character sheet at the end. We call a survivor sheet. And that would be the process. And here, now your PDFs have it, but fresh off the block is the 2-page survivor sheet, front and back. I've got copies here. They just came in actually in the 11th hour, and they are gorgeous looking, super cool, so much better than honestly what I was putting together. This is working with our layout designer, and we will iterate on this character sheet over the course of beta leading up to release. There is a form fillable one that you can access in the same place you grab the beta. We went with horizontal because there's a lot of things you need to write out, and fitting the edges section on the front of the sheet, it needed a lot of space. And so we ended up going to horizontal just to give a lot of breathing room where it was needed. My original version, I'm very proud of the original character sheet. It is, but you can just kind of see the breathing room I feel that the new one has. These old ones were really cool, and I am very proud of them, but it wasn't an efficient use of space for what you actually needed moment to moment. We noticed people were flipping these over constantly to have to check their edges, right? That's something you need to check the most during gameplay. I appreciate you, William. Yeah, it took a lot of effort. I got a lot of help on those sheets from all sorts of people to improve them. But really, it's night and day when I bring in somebody who is a professional layout designer. I'm so happy we got to work with Jenna. She is awesome. She's doing all the layouts for the book. She's really saved the day in that regard. Who made the new sheet? So our layout designer, Jenna Figures, she's a professional layout designer and graphic designer, and she made these. And we've been working with her for a little bit, and we just happened to get these in right in the nick of time. She's also specializes in accessibility and all that, so... Yeah, they're more printer friendly. I actually need to upload another version that doesn't have the gray on. So you'll notice that there's kind of a lot of gray around the edge for the weathering that I realize is less printer friendly. We want some of the gray in the boxes for the visual clarity, but the borders have a weathered effect that I could probably reduce to make this even more printer friendly so you're not using up your black ink. We have looked at full color versions of that as well, like the old one that have like a paper effect. But for now, for beta, it's best to keep it simple. So let's move into professions. We've got 24 professions to pick from. Professions give you the most equipment and give you the most starting money, generally speaking, of your backstory elements. And there is a good reason in fiction that you choose professions first. So what you do matters most, right? How you are contributing to society, what your profession is the first decision you make. So that's the intention here. Isaac, so character sheets used to be at the back of the book, so they were easier to photocopy. Yep, they'll be free PDFs, both printer and form fillable on the website. Yep, absolutely. We want zero barriers there. So there'll be free PDFs to download, both printer friendly and probably a color, like a super fancy color digital version if you're just going to use it as a form fillable on your computer. Yep, good call, Isaac. I put them here in the PDF for now, so like you can see them before moving into character creation. But in the final book, that may not be in this order, right? We're going to be consulting a lot with Jenna on that, on the layouts to see where it makes sense. Yeah, good call. So yeah, professions. I'm not going to read through them all. Y'all can dig into them, but there's a bunch. And yeah, professions is first. How you've contributed to society or taken away from society in the case of things like outlaws is here. And these layouts, and thank you, Daniel, if he's still on the stream. Daniel burned the midnight oil to get all of the equipment stats into this section, because it could have just been a list of gear. Like for academic, it could have listed a satchel, a magnifying glass, and you pick between a chemistry kit, a tinker kit, and a medical kit. And you'd have to go flip to the sections in the book to write down those stats. But that's insane to ask people to do that. And I wasn't sure if I was going to have time to get that in for the beta, and Daniel really helped me out there. And so every backstory element has the stats for the gear you write down right on that page. Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Are you still in chat? And this just makes it so much more convenient, because hunting down all this equipment would take way too long. It has also the connections that you have. And now here's where I get to show off something really fancy. So these layouts, you'll notice, have a bunch of negative space. And this negative space is planned, actually. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll go to... so I want to show from the mock-ups. This is more like what they're going to look like, to kind of compare the two. So this is made by Jenna, our layout designer, right? That we... show the art. So this is what each of these pages is going to be. All 50 backstory elements are going to look like this, with a big splashy piece of artwork that occupies the negative space. And it's going to be slightly different for each one, because the negative space is different for each. You know, some of them have more vertical space. And what we basically did is, this is one of our awesome artists that we've been working with since before we even went live on YouTube. This is Bray's art. Is I sent him the mock-ups of about the space each is going to need, so he can plan them in his artwork. And Bryce is incredibly talented. He draws a lot of these by hand with ink. He inks these by hand first. He'll draw and ink them. And so they have this, you can't see it on the stream, they have this incredible human touch to them, right? That I just think is absolutely gorgeous. And they look amazing in black and white, but when he adds this color to it, combined with this sort of acid Western color scheme that we're using, it's just going to absolutely pop off the page, right? This is just 50 pages of this, immediately drawing you in. Like, you choose the incident, lost it all, and you see, you know, the woman here in front of the burning barn with two, graves that she's just dug, right? Oh yeah, Milton. Yeah, the main artist that works with Odin's Key Gaming, with Zarek and them on Indominate, is also incredible. People that are comic book artists in their background often have a lot of experience with that hand-drawn element, using pencils, pens, and inking. Yeah, oh, you know what's crazy, Twice Dead Mage? is that this artist isn't some old dude either. This guy's a young guy. He's younger than me, but he has studied traditional like hand drawn style. Anyway, and then he digitizes the color. He doesn't do all of them by hand like that. We don't have it ready yet, but he made time-lapse videos, this artist, of his process, both hand inking and digitizing. And we're going to put a big old video together showing off the process of making this art. We're so proud of the art. And that's really what this Kickstarter was about. Paying all these artists just buckets of money, right? Give all these amazing artists a big old blank check, but not a blank check, but, you know, go up to Bryce and say, hey, dude, make 50 of these awesome ones with only a little bit of guidance from me. Just go nuts with it, dude. And it's just absolutely awesome. So cool. But anyway, we've got the 24 professions here. I'm not going to dig into all of them, but these professions are attempting to immerse you in the world because these are the things that people do. It's why it's not classes like wizard and warrior. You know, gambler is a profession, and gambler doesn't give you like special magic or anything like that. You gamble for a living. But, you know, there's more traditional combat roles like lawman and mercenary. But something you'll find, so here's just to explain some game design here. So the lawman gets a lot of combat equipment and they get combat skills, generally speaking, right? Same thing with the mercenary. The mercenary gets the best starting weapons and access to the best like combat skills. But all the mercenary gets is a gun, like a couple guns, right? They have a hunting knife and they choose one of the better guns available. That's it. The huckster has no combat skills that it gets access to from its profession, but look at all the equipment. It gets all of this. They get a donkey and a cart full of consumables. So they have gear that is worth more money than what the mercenary has, maybe, but it's not directly combat relevant. But they get really useful stuff, right? So something you'll find as you flip through this is the combat backstory elements get a weapon and very little else. And you'll find as you play the game and play adventures, like we're going to be talking about before we end the stream about January's TFE community games, just to titillate you, there's, I think, 10 or 11 sessions that are going to be available to sign up in January. We have so many games being run by me, by the community. So before I forget, that's happening. 11, thank you, Ray. You know what? Before I forget, because I'm all over the place this morning, let me mention to everybody on the stream, we haven't made the official announcement in the Discord server yet, but I'm going to pull up the information for y'all really quick. And thank you to Red Richard and Mrs. Red Richard. Y'all are the best for putting all this together. And let me just switch cameras real fast here. So, oh, that didn't quite work the way I wanted to. Let's do this image. We'll zoom out maybe. Hold, please. So, if you are interested, if you've got the beta, or even if you don't, in playing some Tales from Elsewhere, some Clockworld in January, we have a ton of sessions planned. There's all 11 of them and when they're going to happen. There will be signups in the events channel, right, on the Bounty board in the Tales from Elsewhere Discord server. But there's going to be a ton of sessions, many of which will feature new threats, new story beats that we haven't talked about before. So if you want to play, if you want to be a player, make a character using the beta rules and sign up for one of these games. And we're going to keep having lots of games over the next several months. So 11 sessions going to be run over the next month. So really excited. 2 by me. I think 2 by Red, 3 by Xanforian. No, 3 by Red. Twin Steel's going to run some and Otto's going to run some. So check it out. There's going to be lots of opportunities to play if you just want to hop in and play. And if you want to run games, reach out to Red Richard in the Discord server. If you want to run games for the community, talk to him. He'll help you get set up and basically advertise a session. Our sessions have generally always filled up. I'm actually even going to try to make it to 1 or 2 of these sessions if I can to actually play my game. So here's hoping. Ooh, Isaac might do one too. For sure, yeah. Like, oh, one of those is William. Okay, it might just be a I have an outdated image here, so forgive me. This one has maybe the correct. Yeah, William's right here. So this is the list of the sessions coming up. One of them, a couple of these have been run before. Like I've run Dig Grave Digger Dig before. Antediluvian Pit Twin Steel has run before, and it was awesome. But then there's new stuff that I haven't told anybody about a whole lot. Like The Futurist is totally new. Mechanical Mayhem by Red is new. So stay tuned. Yeah, you're the 30th. Super excited for people to run. So if that's something you want to do, you want to run games or play in them, check it out in the server. And we're going to have lots of games being run as we iron out a lot of monsters, really. So pop back to the beta. Did chat go away? I had chat being... There it is. There's chat on the stream. Okay, so back to... Let me clean up the image there. Okay, so back to the book. Yeah, February hasn't been scheduled yet. Yeah, I wanted to play Antediluvian Pit. I talked a lot with Twin Steel about what was going into that adventure, and it was awesome. I just loved it. He understood the assignment immediately. A lot of people are like, I'm not sure how I'll run, something. I don't know if this story's going to fit, and they always knock it out every time. It's always awesome. Okay, so we won't flip through every single backstory element. I was just explaining some of the ideology behind it. But like I said, there's 50 pages of backstory elements because each one gets its own page and its own spread. I know, Zan, I really want to play in some of these games. I will hopefully have time. Oh, yeah, Zarek, I would love to see a game run by you. I want to play in a session with you too, Zarek, right? Like, we got a chance to play once, I think. I just want to play this game with people because I love the game. I haven't made a character in my own game in a while. So it is all good. But yeah, super, super fun stuff. So, for those that know, I assume everybody on the stream is pretty familiar with it, but the way you make a character, right, is you choose a profession, and then your culture is what group of people you were raised with or spent a lot of time with, and then you choose your inciting incident, like you were chased out of town or had a brush with madness. But we won't go into all that. But, there's a bunch here. They give you access to your edges and so forth. And there's 50 of them, which is a pretty good variety. I stopped at 50, technically with the skill, and there's no duplicate skill permutations. Every backstory element gives you a unique set of 2 skills. I could have probably tried to find a way to include all permutations of skills. I would need to create something like 6 more backstory elements, but I felt like I was forcing it at that point. I expressed the world sufficiently. So next is a big old section of edges. These go on for, let's see, page 127. It's like 30 pages of edges, something like that. A little bit less. It would be really cool to have more art here. We're talking with Red about putting some art. So the edges, they come in 10 different categories, which it explains here at the start. Assassin, Bruiser, Clockwork, Crafting, Deadeye, Defensive, Interaction, Mobility, and Survival. These 10 categories are not the same categories we would have in every Tales from Elsewhere setting book, right? These are the ones that make sense for this world, these categories. And there would be different categories in different books, organizing play styles differently. This is a bespoke set. So it's not like, whatever, if you buy a medieval book, it's going to have Assassin, Bruiser, Clockwork, and Crafting. It's not going to have the same set. It's going to be tailor-made. There'll be some that will be shared, like Crafting and Supernatural will probably show up in a lot, but they're going to be different. Oh, hey, Cybrock. Got to deliver some Christmas presents, but I'm a defo sign up for some games next month. Heck yeah, dude. It then goes through the origin edges, which are kind of like a race or species. It's a change to your biology. This is how you get being a clock, like a Clockworld person, Bard from the Marble Orchard, or Trot Up by Elsewhere. And the plan is there's a big splashy piece of art for each of these, drawn from the animatic, like those big dramatic pieces, like the big one of Mudo, or mine will be right here. Bard from the Marble Orchard is Reverend Hezekiah Pace. And so these edges are big entries because they also include lore. Most edges are just simply a packet of gameplay mechanics for you to use, but the origin edges change your biology and the way you interact with the world in a pretty substantive way. So they're presented almost like a backstory element. And mechanically, you replace any one of your edge choices with a backstory element when you create the character. Technically, you are not allowed to choose these after character creation, but it actually does mention in here guidance if somebody comes under a curse, you could become chawed up by elsewhere afterward. I've been here the whole time. I'm getting all excited talking about my games. It makes me excited to see that. It's incredible to see this copy. I've done some hard copies before, but never the full rules. Never fully built out. This is literally double the size of the last hard copy I made of the game. So cool. So yeah, big art here. I'll be waiting. Medieval we were going to say my thing, but love the way you design. Yeah, I know, Twice Dead Mage. We will be officially announcing in Q1 this year what the next products will be. I will make no promises as to what they are. And it's probably medieval. But we will be announcing what the next products are, because as we move into layouts and finalization of this product, because I mean the words are already written, finalizing it, we're going to be building the next product. Oh, heck yeah, Cyberrock. I'm really excited to get a chance to play with you. Like we've been talking, I feel like, for a long time now, but we haven't like gamed together. You're somebody whose opinions I respect and want to hang out with. Anyway, so this goes through all the edges. Some edges are super simple, purposefully. So from a design standpoint, because this is a freeform character builder, a player chooses the level of complexity of their character by their edge choices. So you can make characters with incredibly simple edges. Bloodlust just says you high roll strikes against bleeding characters. This is extremely simple, very effective, easy to trigger. And there's others in here like Dirty Fighting, which lets you exchange injury dice for added conditions, added status effects that you can use when fighting. That's much more complicated. Or Fists of Iron and Steel, which is a fan favorite for those who've gotten to use it, that gives you alternative attack modes when you go all in on punching things. So you choose the level of complexity you get to interact with. You could use, there's a few stance edges. There's three stances. So using Grizzly stance is a lot more complicated than just using something that's always on, like Pincushion, that just triggers automatically. So anyway, you choose the complexity. I want to maybe set up a challenge to see if people can find all of the cultural references I've put into this book. Like, I hope all of you understand what this one's referencing, Fists of Iron and Steel. I hope so. If not, you need to look up a very particular song. In Daniel's redlining of this book, he caught one of the 3 Ballad of Buster Scruggs references that have been snuck into this book. There are 3, though. Kudos to you if you can find all 3. So anyway, the edges explain all of it. You have certain edge categories that are more complex, that have their own rules. So Clockwork edges have special rules for them. They are bespoke to this setting. Because for example, if you have at least 3 Clockwork edges, you gain the robot type. So everybody's a person, but even if you're just some dude and you get enough of these edges, you are a robot person now, which actually makes you more vulnerable to certain things like Tesla grenades and such. So there's a drawback. And Clockwork edges replace body parts, and you actually have to note that. Same thing with crafting. Crafting has its own set of rules. I'm particularly proud of the crafting rules in this game. Oh, thanks, Josh. I just saw it's all looking great, Peter. Thank you so much. So the crafting, I had iterated. I used to have a super built-out, massive subsystem of a crafting system that I built, and it was a huge pain and nobody liked it. And I realized that sitting around and tracking a bunch of crafting components was not the sort of gameplay experience that I wanted for this book. And so the crafting system is very simple. It lets you just make stuff when you get a breather, right? You can just get items, and that's very valuable. Some people would think like, oh, I can always, and that's because the shopping system, oh, I hit the camera, I'm going to knock it over. The vendor system in this game has built-in scarcity, which means you will often not be able to get what you want from vendors. So being able to just make your own equipment is huge. I remember a playtester, one of the internal playtesters I ran a whole campaign for. He was making his character and he said, Peter, if I take Demolitionist, I can just make dynamite? Like whenever I get a breather? I said, yep. He said, and his eyes lit up because he understood that having unlimited access to certain pieces of gear, even in small quantities, is incredibly impactful in this game. And I think y'all will see that when you get to play long form play, obviously in just like one shots it doesn't come up as much, but in campaigns that last between 6 to 10 sessions, these sorts of crafting edges are awesome. And what's cool about crafting edges is you make a number of items equal to the number of crafting edges you have. So the more you expand your options, the more things you can make, and you pick from your combined craft list. So it's very cool. I know he's also mentioned a sci-fi setting. Yep. I've talked a lot about a lot of things. And yep, the dynamite is a universal problem solver. For sure. So yeah, we've got Deadeye edges. I won't spend too much time on this. There's a number of... So because the game is fairly violent, there's defensive edges and there's also survival edges. Defensive edges are for taking for actively avoiding harm. And then survival edges are more about passively avoiding harm, I guess you could say. Is how it describe that. Interaction edges, being an interaction specialist, even in combat, can be very powerful with a lot of these. I think when people have played support characters, they've realized how impactful you are if you invest in it, particularly because the action economy, the way the turns work, means you can always coordinate with your friends to set up team up attacks, right? And that's huge because one of the big problems with playing a support character in games with very strict initiative is sometimes the initiative order doesn't work out for you to team up with somebody. And that's really frustrating. So support characters, very effective. Even if you don't invest in any edges that are support in their orientation, just simply like one person distracting an enemy so an ally can sneak up on them and stab them is huge. If you distract an enemy, just built-in rules, you can distract somebody. It means other characters can sneak up on them. When you sneak up on somebody, when they're unaware of you, they can't react to your attack. And a lot of threats have very good defensive reactions. So if you're able to distract one of them and let the other player sneak up, all you need is sometimes one good hit to take down a monster. And that team up attack is often better than everybody just ineffectively throwing projectiles their way. So... Hey, it's Salty Nick. Hey, buddy. Happy New Year, dude. It's almost midnight your time probably by now. So we got some supernatural edges, which run the gamut between like more occult ideas, some a little bit more mystical, some more holy in their evocation. Ode to the West Wind is one of the creator of the example character, Mine. This was his favorite with one of his other characters named Tumbleweed. This basically lets you leak devil's breath everywhere, which is great. Oh yeah, Cyberrock, yeah. Yeah, if you make active defense one of the main ways you protect yourself, it means disabling that active defense on an enemy proactively is a really fun way to take something down. Yeah, you're not gonna... You don't run up to the Blood Oiler and say, one-on-one me, bro. Right, twice damage. Peter needs to quit his job so he can work on all the TFE books. Man, preach. So yeah, survival edges, ideologically, are more about passively helping when you're already hurt or to avoid being hurt in the first place, rather than actively defending yourself with defensive edges. So things like Cheat the Devil are just make you harder to hurt, or Silver Lining gives you pretty darn good benefits when you have negative conditions. These also are the survival edges, also the way you improve your defenses. Your passive defenses can be upgraded here. One of the only ways to do so. This is also where you have your doctoring edges, your surgeon edges, where you can be a, big quotes here, healer, that don't really let you remove injuries in combat per se, but help mitigate those problems and make you effective at like pulling your friends out of danger and so forth. I know. So John Fielder, yeah, yeah. I have so many ideas. I'd love to explore them all. Okay, so equipment. All right. Controversially, there is encumbrance tracking in this game, and I will fight you over it. I love it. It is less crunchy than it was originally. Thank you, Daniel, for walking me back on the crunchy level here. Oh, sorry. Isaac's getting hungry. We've got a little bit of oatmeal left, so this one's for you, buddy. The ASMR of me eating oatmeal. Okay. A little bit of oatmeal left. Oatmeal. Oatmeal returns. Let's grow. There's a threat for Clockworld right there. There are monsters that puke stuff out in this game, and it's super gross. So we've got the equipment system here. There's encumbrance tracking. It's fairly simple, but it's crunchier than other games like D&D where you just ignore it. Right? Rules as written, you're supposed to engage with this. But the intention... Okay. So forgive me for a little bit of game design. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Let's talk game design. So the back of your sheet has this big equipment tracker. This is originally on the front, but it actually belongs on the back, where you track what you have equipped. This column is for your belt, things like a bandolier, and if you have one on, and a bag like a backpack. So you write in the information and then just note the encumbrance in the column it's supposed to go. You're supposed to primarily engage with this outside of combat, right? This is what you set your loadout to. What do you want to have immediately accessible on your belt, equipped like in a holster? And what do you want to put in your bag? Things that you have to use an action to open your bag and get things out of it. So you do track all of this, but you really don't like moment to moment fiddle with it. To move something between states, you would just erase the number and put it in the other one. But primarily, this is about choosing where you've stored things before you head out into the ruination. So it looks a little crunchy, but in order to evoke a survival, like sort of scarcity idea, without having too much crunch, I want players to think about what they have and where they put it a little bit. So that's what this system is about. So this goes into explaining how to use the equipment tracker, the different states of an item, like being stowed versus equipped, having something in your hand, how to damage items and break them and repair them. And then it goes into the vendor system, which I have talked about in a video on YouTube, where it is random what vendors have in a player-facing structure. Let's say the players walk up to the gunsmith when they come back to town and they want to see what sort of special ammo and weapons they have available. All I need to do as the storyteller, actually, is say, this town's on tough times, but they're doing okay. They use this D6 scarcity dice, and just go. Shop with whatever you want. Like, we're going to eventually have printout vendor pages that you can fill in, like an erase. That's going to be a thing with the launch of the final game, by the way, that you'll be able to print for free online. But you can just be like, go shop. I'm going to get ready for the next session. And the players could just do that. They could just roll the dice and determine what's there, mark off what they want, put the money in the vendor's bank account, basically. Like, they could do it all themselves. And because what they have is based on chance. And it's all player facing. All the GM has to do is announce the die, the scarcity die that they want them to use. That's it. Super simple. And it mentions haggling here. No haggling. Mini rant right now. RPG players love to haggle over nickels and dimes. In real life, people don't sell their hard-won or hard-made labors for less. They don't, because then they'll go out of business and starve to death. You can't just go up to people and try to get 50% discounts on everything. So there's a little guidance here, basically saying, don't haggle. It's not to say you can't, but it's recommending to the table that you can't go to the blacksmith and go have him sell you all of his armor at 50% off just because you wink at him, right? No. This is a person's livelihood. Operating at a loss like that gets people out of business, and then their family starves. So don't do it. You can do it, but it's describing why you shouldn't allow significant haggling. That's not, doesn't make sense. Yeah, you're not supposed to have shopping sessions with this system, The players just handle it themselves. So then it goes into explaining how all the different types of equipment work, just unpacking what it is, where there's detail needed, like how setting a fuse on dynamite works and how it's a random number of turns before it explodes and the player doesn't know unless they have a tinker's kit, like unless they have tools to set specific fuses. Brief mention of mounts and vehicles and how they work. They're pretty simple. Different ways that weapons work. And then it starts going into equipment lists. So it's got trade goods, the kinds of things you can find out in the Ruination to sell, right? Because you're not going to find like cash out in the Ruination, but you could find like, I don't know. Let's see an example here. So barrels of booze you could find and bring them back, and they're worth an amount of money. You could find silver ore, right? And it's how much that weighs and how much that would be worth and who you could sell it to, which vendor would want it. Because not every town will have every vendor, right? You come back to some fringe settlement with a bunch of gold ore, you need to take that to a place that exchanges gold. You can't just like sell it to the blacksmith per se. He's not gonna. What's he gonna do with it? So then it goes into the vendor pages, and these are presented as charts, as tables right now. But I didn't print one of these out. But the actual layouts are going to be Sears catalog shopping pages. Every one of these entries has a piece of art for it being developed. There's already almost half of them done. 100%, Matthias. Yeah, so haggling culture is something that absolutely exists. In this world, right, this post-apocalyptic world of scarcity doesn't really make sense, though. But yeah, absolutely right. Same thing in parts of Mexico, where you're assumed to haggle with the local vendors, right? That's part of the culture. That's a very good point. I purposefully excluded that for this game, also because I'm sick of it in RPGs. So anyway, yeah, these are going to be full magazine flippable spreads with a piece of artwork for every single thing. Like every service, every piece of item is going to have a 300 by 300 pixel little guy, for every single one that you'll flip through and pick out and shop for. That'll have all the stats and everything, but it'll be presented in this super immersive and beautiful way. It'll be really easy to find what you're looking for because everything has an icon. Like, if you're looking for something that's a syringe, you'll just look for the syringe art, right? It'll have bespoke piece of art for everything, and almost I think half of them are already done. Hey, there's Zachary from Peasantry. Yeah, in a Latino flea market. Absolutely. Been there with my in-laws, and absolutely. So some of the vendors will have multiple pages because they have so much stuff. Like the bank is fairly simple. But yeah, these will be full like art-covered layouts that'll be immersive to flip through. That's the final layout. Right now, these are just grids, right? Super simple tables. And we will be, like I said, releasing a free printable PDF on the website for launch of the actual game that is the full Sears catalog, but with like a little box for each one to write in what their current stockpile is for everything. So like you'll be able to like print them. It'll be really cool. So this goes through all the equipment, right? It's some pretty normal stuff. We don't need to dig through it all. I love that the church is a vendor. Right, you can get holy water. Holy water is incredibly powerful in a world full of undead. There's services. You can go, sit and pray. Some stuff they do for free. Some stuff is expensive. General store shopping. All that kind of good stuff. Yeah, gunsmith, livery, your usual business here. And of course, a saloon. Tinkerer, right, where you can get vehicles, flamethrowers, Tesla tech, some sci-fi stuff. All right there. And then we go into the lore and world chapter. And I made the world map here, the chapter header, just for now. It's probably not going to look exactly like that in the final. But this is by Arthur, and I don't remember if he's still in chat. Absolutely incredible piece of art that he's done here. This is the Ruination, the counties of the Ruination. So we have the Oskaloosa Range up here, which is part of Vale County. In the center is Plains County, and in the south is the Gulf County. And this little strip of land is all that is known in the world. Hey, there he is here. So this is all that's left. And this map is supposed to look like a pre-calamity map that's been edited and written on and things stuck to it by current explorers in the fiction. The church is full of merchants. Get me my whip. Good reference. So this is the known world. It's this little strip of land that's it's evoking from the Gulf of Mexico up toward the Great Lakes. That's kind of what this is supposed to evoke. And it's purposefully left with big blank spaces. Like, there's huge areas in the Great Plains where it's not noted what's there, because you tell me what's there, right? Fill in that. Write an adventure that takes place here in the Great Plains. There's a town here now. It's not on the rail line, or maybe there's another offshoot of the rail line that goes there. It's totally up to you. Hey, Braga! Thanks, buddy. Yeah, so very cool. This is a super immersive map because they don't have a precise map. So I didn't want to provide a precise map. And what's on the other side of Los Dientes Mountains to the west, or on the other side of the Chesapeake River to the east? You tell me. That's for that's for you to explore with your table, because in like a West Marches style game, you like just venture out, right? Yeah, and no distance scale, no precise distance scale. There are these demarcations along the sides for a grid, but it's not supposed to be precise because they don't have precise. So, and the start here of this section explains some of that ideology. This is about the people and the places, but the world is yours and there are empty spaces. Do with it what you want. This is supposed to be a starting point for a Weird West world. But if you want to just ignore all this world building stuff, go for it, right? The whole system works just fine. But I don't want people to think that this is the canon law of how the world has to be. And I'm excited to see people write adventures that build out this map, right? For them, right? What do they think is on the other side of these mountains? What's actually going on down here in the Ile de Feu, right? This volcanic area down here. What's going on down there? I don't know. You tell me. I'm sure the oil fields over here are lovely. What's there? I don't know. Write an adventure about it. Tell me what's there. So that's the intention here, right? Is for people to fill it in. What actually is in Astra Funestra, this crater that the Church of Ashes built their capital next to protect us from? What sort of horrors are coming out? You tell me. So each lore entry is organized the same way. You'll have a one-pager on the left-hand side that is the overall pitch of whatever this organization or location is. So in this case, Church of Ashes. Here's a quick summary of what the Church of Ashes is. It has summary of beliefs, summary of their organizational structure. It's got a quick summary of noteworthy places, noteworthy people, and a little D6 table of adventure inspiration involving the church. Oh, see you, Zarek. Glad you stopped by, buddy. We'll talk later. So it's got a D6 table of adventure inspiration for you, the storyteller, to think of how you could tell an adventure involving the Church of Ashes. And a little D6 table of connection inspiration. How could the players already be connected to an adventure involving the Church of Ashes? How could you seed this in their backstory? And so examples like, I'm just going to pick some at random here. Adventure inspiration. An inquisitor is rumored to be consorting with demons. Sounds cool. Build an adventure based on that. It's supposed to just inspire an adventure idea. Or a possessed child is proving extremely difficult to exorcise. Make an adventure about that. Because not all of these need to be combat, right? They're just supposed to evoke a story connected to this organization. And with connection inspiration, it's ideas for how you could have you as a player could build into your backstory that you've come across the Church of Ashes. Like, your kin is held in Malum Carcerum, which is like a prison for demons. You suspected your local priest of being a cultist, right? Like, this is just ways for you to connect with it. So it's always on the left-hand side here. And on the right-hand side, hey, it's Odin 554. And then after that is the long-form prose summary unpacking all the information and characters that they mention here. So it goes into detail about what the purifying light is for the Church of Ashes. What are the 3 penitent acts that are mentioned here? Explains the organization structure, talks about the places and the people, and like hit my microphone. Unpacks that lore substantively. And it does this for all 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All 12 of these organizations and places. So some of them are organizations like the Church of Ashes, Exodus, the Cult, Some of them are, or the Gleaners, which are wasteland warlords that use primitive technology or like, swords and axes and armor out in the ruination. These are hostile organizations, of which there are threat entries, of course. But there's also just regional information, like Gulf County. Here is what the ideology of people in Gulf County are often like, noteworthy people and places in Gulf County, adventure inspiration for Gulf County, and connections to it. And then it unpacks it all. And so I was hoping that this would be a very clear and consistent way to provide lore information that isn't just a dump of raw prose. I'm not trying to, I'm not a failed novelist trying to trick you into reading my microfiction. You want to know about the 100 Blue? You could just read this. You don't have to read all the other pages. Here's your summary of how the 100 Blue Bandit organization works. And the noteworthy people and places, it's just noteworthy. It's not all of them, right? This isn't every person or place associated with 100 Blue. These are just noteworthy ones for you to start with. And it continues like that for a while. Got the Junkadoon, the nomadic tinkerers and scavengers that are kind of pacifistic at times. Hey, you got that reference. Good. So yeah, the Junkadoon. So we have 3 different tribal people in Clockworld. I thought a lot about this, and I didn't want just one like tribal option. I wanted there to be a diverse amount of indigenous people to pick from because they aren't a monolith in real life. And I've read, you'll see it in the intro chapter where I talk about cultural context. This is really important to me to do well, and I do have some cultural consultants on this. And there will be changes, some edits to some of this as my sensitivity readers help me tweak some language here and there. But overall, we got like the thumbs up on a lot of this. I've definitely put in the time. So one of the 3 tribes is the Oskaloosa tribe in the north, and they're inspired primarily by Algonquin language group. So this would be First Nations of Canada, groups up in the north like the Ojibwe and so forth. So we got information on them. There are pronunciation guides for certain things for some of them because some of them are very hard to pronounce. Like Deep Wagagon is something that we don't assume people know how to pronounce. So things like that are provided. We got Plains County, the central one where Langstrom City is. It has one in this summary. It has one thing that just says guns, 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 which tickled me. We got the Chesapeake tribe, which are inspired by, we'd say Plains Indians would be the term we'd use here. Slightly, there's debate on whether or not that term should still be used. There's not even consistent belief within different indigenous communities. Anyway, so Chesapeake tribe, they're nomadic along the Chesapeake River. They're very cool. They were hunters of bison. They have really fun, noteworthy people, by the way. So if you're flipping through your PDF, I love Marshal Tom Blackhoof so much. This character really entertains me. So I hope when you get to him, you just love this person. He feels like such a real guy to me. I don't know. Marshal Tom Blackhoof, page 212. I hope you like him. I want to write some adventures featuring him. He really amuses me. We got the Huazte tribe, which is American Southwest. We would say like Pueblo Indians and northern Mexico, Aztecas, Mexica, inspired here. Super fun. They're a passionate people. We've got a lot of pronunciation guides here because a lot of their words are Nahuatl inspired or actual Nahuatl words. And so trying to help people pronounce some of them was helpful. Even the name, we help unpack the pronunciation of Huazte. That's Huazte, by the way. So there's a lot of pronunciation guides for these ones because, like, the Tezcatlipoca is not something that people would be able to pronounce easily. So I tried to include them where possible, where I thought people might struggle. Or like Détrempé in Gulf County, which we passed, is a French word, and so I provided pronunciation there. So I tried to help with that. This is also another NPC I really found entertaining, Horneado. He's a clock who's part of the Huazte tribe. He was really fun. Let's see here. Oh, we got Vale County up north. Vale County has the Oskaloosa tribe, but also has, inspired by the Great Lakes states, it has a lot of people that would be of Germanic descent, we would say, in the real world. And some of that outlook and vibe, beer brewing and such can be found up there in the mountains. But really, yeah, very cool place. Yeah, really fun. One of my favorite NPCs here is actually Ernst Trout. Really like this guy. The line says here, so for Ernst Trout, it says, "Some folks are born to their name, and the Trout family have always been fishmongers." I love it. And the last entry here is actually the wolves in sheep's clothing. Yeah, yeah, the X would be like a shali. Yeah, I'm probably butchering it as I even say it now. Yeah, that's a good question, Isaac. I don't actually have an answer for that about future cultural sensitivity. When making content outside of one's own culture, that's when it's really important to try to connect with others and get some guidance on it. But like if I'm making a game, I don't know, about ancient Greece, I kind of shrug. You know what I mean? So we'll see. I definitely will try to consult wherever relevant, with people. Wolves in sheep's clothing have their own entry because they are the overarching villains of the campaign. Yeah, historical consultants potentially. But yeah, that's good to call out, Isaac. Well, you know how important that kind of stuff is to me, so for sure. Hey, Bryce. We were just so we got Bryce in the chat. We were gushing over this mock-up we made with one of your art pieces, by the way. All of chat was like going goo goo gaga, going nuts for this like mock-up of what the layouts are going to be with your work, dude. Yeah, obviously we're we're big fans of your work around here, so can't wait to integrate all the stuff you've been working on. Toddler mode for art. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like, all right, so one of the best things about being successfully funded is, I'm going to put this back up while I talk about this, is that I get the absolute pleasure of waking up in the morning, because I'm always up after everybody else because I'm on the West Coast, and seeing a notification from one of the artists that a draft or a sketch or a final piece is in. It's like Christmas. It is the coolest thing. The artists we have are absolutely incredible. And so, yeah, when I wake up and see like Bryce has sent me a couple sketches, I'm like, oh, get out my phone real quick. I can't wait. So that's what the best thing is that I've gotten to unleash these artists on it, and it is awesome. It's funny, the wolves in sheep's clothing have information about all 4 wolves, which are Simon Pure, Gospel Sharp, Curly Wolf, and Jim Dandy. And their ideology, places of importance for them, like their lairs within the narrative, because some of them are disturbing. Like Simon Pure's is called the Abattoir. Let's see, for Simon Pure, his is the 5 Emeralds Hotel. For Curly Wolf, it's the Last Word, this crater out in the ruination. And then, of course, the Church of Inversion, which is covered more in the Exodus chapter, is for Gospel Sharp. Yeah, so Tracholita, I maybe mispronouncing that. The screen's kind of far from me from my glasses right now. One of the best way to approach presenting cultures like this is actually just make them badass. Start with that. Make them real people, just as flawed and interesting and cool as everybody else. But the reason why I'm working with sensitivity readers is primarily because, not to like triple check and curtail the creativity. It's to make sure I haven't blundered in an unanticipated way, really. I'm getting old and I can't I don't always know every detail about these other cultures, and I want to be respectful toward them. And so the easiest way to do that is consult with somebody who specializes in catching those kinds of unconscious things, right? So it's worthy use of my time. And it's not like, they're tearing apart the work. I've already gotten feedback from them that I haven't incorporated quite yet. It's minor stuff. I've already done the homework, as it were. And so I'm not expecting any major rewrites or anything like that. They're just helping me with some word choice and, just making sure I don't unconsciously include things that I shouldn't, right? It's all good there. So after all that stuff, we now enter what is the rest of this book, which is storyteller guidance. The rest of this stuff is pretty much just for the storyteller. People tend to be very tropey. Yeah, that's another very good point. I really wanted to avoid trope in especially the tribal communities I included in these tribes, because I wanted them to feel authentic and real and just as interesting as any others. Now, some of them are drawing on real conflicts of that indigenous people have struggled with that I wanted to highlight even. So like, just as an example, don't want to spend too much time digging into this. So you'll note when you read the Oskaloosa tribe, don't limit creativity. You're not sacrificing creativity for sensitivity. They're not even exclusive, I'd say. Cultural consultant is probably the better term, William. That's a fair point. Yeah, cultural consultant. Yeah, that is more accurate as to what the people I'm working with are doing. Good point. So with the Oskaloosa tribe, you'll note that a theme you'll see running through the Oskaloosa tribe's lore is the old ways versus the new ways, modernity versus traditionalism, as a internal cultural conflict within their community. Not like a violent conflict, but that there's different ideologies within their community about how best to survive and flourish. And it's created a fairly stark schism within their community. This is a very real thing. With some believing in full integration into the larger settlements and cities, while others wanting to stay more in their remote mountain lodges. I mean, they still have towns, right? They also still, not just like living in the woods in a cave or something, but there's the idea of living more remotely away from the rest of culture and staying where they have always stayed as a way to keep safe and to preserve their culture versus a more integrated approach. And so there's this undercurrent of internal conflict within their people. And that's, I hope, shown to be like an authentic insight into a real struggle of indigenous communities, especially in the United States and in Canada. So gesturing toward these kinds of struggles with fictitious tribes. Anyway, don't want to spend too much time talking about ideas of cultural stuff. There is the open letter at the start of the book that kind of talks about my ideology. But it's fascinating stuff, and I take it very seriously, and I enjoy reading and researching these sort of things. So the storyteller section isn't a huge section, because I'm not trying to teach people how to run a role-playing game. This is not baby's first tabletop role-playing game. It's not meant to be. But I do want to articulate how to run this game. But I'm not going to teach people what a D6 is. It's just not the goal. This is not supposed to be an introductory role-playing game. What I instead tried to fill this with is actionable steps for planning and running a session. So it's hopefully supposed to be, or this will hopefully be useful. That's really the thing, right? I want this to be useful. So it talks about literally the steps I go through when I plan a session. How to plan a session. What steps do you take? Think of the horror. Choose threats and hazards with inspiration about different categories of them based on the type of horror you want to evoke. So it talks about different types of fears you can tackle, like the fear of being trapped, changed, betrayed, disgust, dread, and weakness. And how then to pick threats that can help evoke that feeling, threats and hazards, to populate a scene with. How to think about threats when you're running them. How to use false positives to create intrigue for players. How to control the challenge about player disposition. As in, you could have the same fight with the same stats and wildly change its challenge based on how prepared you allow the players to be, right? That's a fair point about being babies. I hope, well, we'll see. Honestly, Trocalita, and I'm glad you've been watching the videos. We'll see how this beta is taken, like how people respond to it and what changes we'll make. I'm perfectly happy explaining other things. I was just trying not to pad too much page count for what is ostensibly not very useful long-term, like the super basics of role-playing game. Like, I don't explain what I don't go into like what a D6 is at the start of the book, because I don't know. I feel like I'd rather just make a YouTube video and explain that. But anyway, the idea of player disposition is a really useful thing to think about when it comes to encounter design and scenario design. And so there's some conversation about that. The concept of manifest destiny is really interesting. And if you look at the world map, the world map evokes even this thought that the previous people had of Manifest Destiny. Anyway, I won't dig into too much. But yeah, there's dig into the lore and let me know what you think about that. There's very clear evocations I was going for. But anyway, yeah, player dispositions, really useful to think about. This is a prep method that I codified based on how I prepare sessions, called the save prep method, which has stakes, action, visceral details, and escalation as a way not to write out like 10 pages of prose when you're designing a session, right? Instead, there's some bullet points you can write ahead of time that should be all you need to reference to keep yourself on track when you're prepping, rather than writing everything out. Because you want to stay loosey-goosey. You want to be responsive to what the players do. And so this is a prep method, not an adventure writing prep. Oh yeah, I do plan on doing a lore video. This is in the works, and it's going to like interpose with artwork we've gotten. Oh yeah. This is on the list. A detailed lore video explaining the history of the world and all that, for sure. So yeah, the save prep method is a preparation method that can help run games like this, where you don't want to be too rigid. So it explains how to do the save prep method and provides a few little details, like if you're going to run the river crossing scenario, this is all you write down to keep your head straight. Or are you going to run the misplaced priest? These are adventures that I've run before. These will exist, and we're probably going to turn these into to spoil some ideas, into pamphlet adventures. By the way, we're going to be working on this structure. So a little bump the camera. So a little spoiler there, but tip your video editors, everyone. Yeah. So there's a prep method here. It talks about how to provide, just briefly, motivations and rewards that primarily leverages this really cool random table in the back of the book that I'll show toward the end. But, how to motivate players and reward them. It then goes into how do you actually run the session? What ideology to have in mind? Here's how to use ranks and set them for challenges. How to choose setbacks for failure. How to render scenes appropriately so players engage with them. How to reward player behavior so they want to reach out into the world and interact with it more, right? So to reward players thinking creatively and engaging. This is all going to be really useful for making my module. It's turning out so big, I'm kind of nervous. Yeah. Trakalita. Yeah, I hope I'm saying your name right. Again, the screen's a little far for me, and I've got old man eyes. But yeah, I'm hoping that this section is actually useful for game masters, or storytellers, as we call them. So running by rank, anybody who's played ICRPG will understand this ideology. This is basically a way to run my game like ICRPG, if you want. The game functions just fine that way. So something to consider. How to keep things moving. Just a brief mention, because this book is not about the details of overland travel and nuance. This is about action. And other books will have a different subject here. Might not even have this. This is like, don't like roll a bunch of dice to have people walk between two settlements if there's no danger. Just cut to the next scene, like a movie, like an action movie. The ideologies for granting breathers and reprieves, because it's getting rests in this game is not something the players choose to do. It is based on the safety of the world around them, and it provides recommendations on how to do that, as well as how to let the players earn rests. Like, if the players want to rest within the dungeon that's full of monsters, you can let them if they make some skill tests and successfully barricade themselves in a dungeon room. But then it says, make sure that as they rest, they hear the scratching on the other side of the door, as the sounds of them using their camp kit in the fire have drawn zombies. Now there's a dozen zombies waiting on the other side of the door for where they need to go next. So it's a problem they have to deal with. Resting is not something you do easily in the game. And there's Red, because we have people wanting to sign up. You have my approval, Red, to open signups. Thank you so much for asking. Go ahead and open it now. Thank you for checking. Hey, Lil C. Heck yeah, man. As you could see, ICRPG, big inspiration there. I can't wait. I am going to be running games in the crit convention, the online crit convention. So Yeah, that was Chris there in 2026. Stay tuned. I'll be doing announcements for that. I think it's in June, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there will be Tales from Elsewhere games being run at that event. I'm super excited. Yeah, TFE South America would be awesome, dude. By the way, Twisted Mage. So anyway, and there's a video of this on my YouTube channel, the 3-round rhythm, right? Y'all who watch the channel know it's my terrible little drawing for it. This will all be replaced with better graphics, of course. It's how to keep things fresh when running games. It's got a whole bunch of information on how to use threats effectively, how to render them appropriately, as in describe them, because in this game, a monster's artwork, the way you physically present a monster, tells the players how they can fight it because of the limb targeting. You need to describe to them how they could hurt people so that the players know what they need to target, right? So it's unpacking this process for the player with some examples. It talks about how, like in D&D, not to dunk on D&D per se, but you could say like a group of 4 goblins run up to you with their daggers or something, right? And that's all you would need. So like you could say approaching you is a blood oiler, which is like 10 feet tall and sort of like a cyborg zombie with 3 arms. That is insufficient in a Tales from Elsewhere game for the players to interact with. You can't just say that. You need to unpack where their body is armored, what limbs they have, what modes of attack they might have. Describe the chainsaw versus the syringe versus the grabby hand or the barbed wire tentacle. Like, they need to know, and you need to communicate that with them, render it for them so they can act appropriately. Give some guidance on executing the helpless. Because ideologically, you don't just run up to downed players and like chop their head off. That's not actually interesting or exciting or tense. You have the blood oiler drag them out of the scene slowly, right? With the trail of blood being dragged behind them. That's how you do it. It has some best practices for tracking injuries, shorthand as a GM, as the storyteller, because you don't just like demarcate hit points. It has my methodology for tracking injuries on several threats at once and how to do that very easily. There was a video on this subject too, but it's the concept of threat reprisal. Those who watch the channel were familiar with it. It's just letting people know how to use a threat a second time. We've got some optional rules for the storyteller to assess, like ignoring encumbrance, a diceless storyteller where all you do is set ranks and you never roll, how to do survival, like tracking rations, heroic recovery, which makes the game less deadly. We've got object composition. If you really want to like fiddle with the durability of things, you can play with this. Playing cards for skill tests. If you want to use a deck of cards to do your skill test, you totally could. Shoves as falls. If you want to make... Draw Steel ended up doing something like this. Basically, if you want to make like throwing people around super deadly, you can use this. And then Frank and Charles from What is Tabletop love this one. The 0 to hero progression, it actually adds vertical progression to the game, which is basically non-existent by default. So some cool stuff there. But then, one of my favorite sections in the whole book, the threats chapter. Something like 25% of this book is just monsters. It's awesome. Oh, for sure, Otto. We'll catch you later. Have a happy New Year, dude. And yeah, William, Twice Dead's ideas are just super cool for his Grand Colombia idea. All right, so threats, monsters, bad guys. I love it. So this section explains how threats are structured, how to adjust their ranks on the fly if you need to. Oh, John. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could use these rules to play a truly historical game very easily if you wanted to set it in the actual United States. Yeah, unpacks like how attributes of threats work, because they're not that symmetrical with players. Like, they use the same action system. How group actions work. So group actions are not swarms. That's like 3 zombies all try to grab you at once. It's not a zombie swarm. There are 3 zombies there specifically, but you can roll one skill test that has all of them acting at once for expediency's sake. It's a way to basically group minor threats. It works very, very cleanly. Because the gestalt of 3 zombies trying to grab you at once is scarier skill bonus wise. Like, that's harder to fend off than it is just 3 of them each individually rolling. Anyway. Yeah, right, Hunter. Exactly. Yeah, you just get rid of like the supernatural stuff out of the book and you can be historical really easily. All the clockwork stuff. It has rules for hordes. Hordes are absolutely disgustingly destructive in this game, and it's wonderful. Because some threats have a horde stat block that basically just gives them different actions and some slightly different mechanics. Like a horde of Kilkenny cats like strips you to the bone. Basically, if they catch you, they're gnarly. But basically, hordes have a way to. It's called split from the horde. They all have a mechanic to add individual threats to the scene. So like the zombie horde could be marching down the street while you hide in the abandoned blacksmith shop. And there's a mechanic for adding individual zombies that wander in, right? That you could then fight individually. So it has mechanics for that, how to use hordes. Knowledge and threats so it's not like there's a one-to-one, this is the knowledge you'd use for this threat. Because knowledge is supposed to be open-ended. It has a guidance by type. Like threats that are of the beast type, you could know something if you have the wilderness knowledge, right? It's pretty straightforward. Or if you know about certain regions or terrain, the stories you might have heard. Knowledge is not like, this is arcana knowledge. This is religion knowledge. It's not supposed to be that strict. You're supposed to have a conversation as a player and the storyteller with what information you could know. Then it talks about scavenging from threats. So monsters don't like drop loot, really, right? That's not like how this game works. It talks about the kinds of things you can find, how to reward players for killing things, but you're not supposed to just like carve up the dead in this game unless you have the Ghastly Harvest Edge, and that's a whole different story. But it talks about the kinds of things you could find. Basically, if the threat is using gear, you find the gear that they're wielding, right? It's all in their stat block. And now it actually has, this is kind of cool. I haven't really shown this publicly. So it has this page about creating quick threats that uses if you need to come up with something on the spot, or just you want to build out a simple threat, this is a methodology to do so. It's called the good, bad, ugly method, where you basically pick evocative terms to help guide the threat's gameplay. You pick a base rank, like this is an adept rank threat. Then you pick something that they're good at. Well, they would be master rank at the thing they're good at. You pick something that they're bad at, like in a general term, not a skill, and they'd be 1 rank lower for that, so they'd be novice. And then the ugly, which is like how they'd be gross or scary or deadly to fight. And you piece that together, and basically that's all you need, because threats just have a single rank that determines all their skill tests, generally speaking, so you can very quickly, randomly even build threats this way. And rolling on this table is really fun. This is page 245. Just rolling on this is really entertaining and a great way to brainstorm monster design. I love these kind of random inspiration tables. The threats of the ruination. All 50 of them in all their glory. It's beautiful. So this is the table of contents for the threat section. So you can find them very quickly. And then it has a couple other tables that you can reference by type and tier, minor, major, and unique, and then beasts, horrors, and robots. Just if you're looking for something in particular, this is a way to find it easily. So now we have what the threat entries look like. Now I think there's about 60, Odin, not 50. So the threat entries. These are... We're going to iterate on these more, so forgive their sort of utilitarian approach currently. We want to iterate on this through beta to make sure that the information is being provided accurately. But, you've got the stats here, and for unique threats there's a lot, because this is like a boss monster, like the Arizona Tenor. And then it has its special actions it can do. And then the facing page is lore, and then guidance on how to use it, with sometimes even random tables for like, what sort of curse formed this Arizona Tenor? Well, here's a D6 table of inspirations, like a family abandoned them to die of consumption alone, right? Cool stuff like that. But what these are actually going to look like, oh yeah, look at this. Here's the mock-up we have for threats layouts. Just look at that. Absolutely beautiful. So this is roughly the idea we're going to go for with these threat layouts. So it's going to be awesome. Oh, just can't wait. Full of color and these sort of acid Western borders. And these are just mock-ups. You know, beautiful, this high-res color art that we're getting from our artist. This one's by Neri, the guy who did the Blood Oiler. You know, this is what the Arizona Tenor entry is going to look like when it's done. Something roughly like this. Oh, catch you, Red. Thanks so much for setting up all those community games. Red Richards MVP, guys. Everybody thank Red. He organized all these community games for January. Yeah, so this is what the thread entries are going to look like. It's just going to be absolutely awesome. Cannot wait. So we won't read through every threat, but there's a lot. You know, we got bandits and blood oilers and the bootyard bilker and a bounty hunter, Cascabel Chiona, Chupacabra, let's see, Church Inquisitor and Church Preacher, the Coal Baron, Cultists, which is Cultist Initiate, Abomination, and Prophet, the Damacor, which is a eldritch Sarlacc pit monster that births horrors, like hatches them. We got Deliverers, which are people overtaken by the frenzy. They're sort of like a little bit like the Reavers in Firefly. So we got the Deliverer entries. I'm just flipping through these quick. The Devil Hive, aka the mutated bear that produces the Devil's Candy. Thanks, Red. The Red Richards group helped playtest this a lot. This one's the art for this is going to be so gross. It's an undead bear, like animated by demonic bees that live inside it and built a honeycomb inside. It's super gross. We got the Dust Bowl. I don't know if Frank or Charles is in chat. I think they're at work. But this is actually something I worked with Frank from What Is Tabletop to create a while ago, called the Dust Bowl, and it's Dust Devils. So he's cited here. We have Escorpion Asqueroso, big old mutated scorpion. Excavator bot, a giant driller bot. Yeah, it can shoot bees out of its mouth. Yep. Giant driller bot. So this has one of the funniest actions I've written for any threat. So it has this thing called Pulverize. So what it does is it takes its foot or its hand and lifts it above an area, because the thing's like 50 feet tall. And you just see like the shadow outline beneath. And then if you don't get out of the way before the next turn, it slams it down. And instead of rolling injury dice, there's a random Pulverize results table. Because it's just, you know, you're just a regular person in my game. If you roll a 1 on a d6, it says reduced to gory pulp, dead. Another example is limbs mangled. One random limb is unharmed. The others each receive a serious agonized injury. The thing just mashes you to pieces, and it's really funny. And you have to basically like pry open its chest compartment to get to its reactor, to blow up the reactor. But the reactor leaks high levels of devil's breath, and so it's gnarly. This thing can like pick up a train and throw it at you. So this thing is like a crazy boss monster. We've got the Fiddler, which I worked with Eli Hara and Red Richard to develop, which is a crazy dance horror that has basically ghost musicians play music and then dances you to death. Like literally can like, he has an action called Do-Si-Do. And he like snaps your limbs apart as he dances around with you. So really gnarly stuff. We've got a ghoul, which is not a ghoul in the D&D sense, but it's somebody whose soul is trapped in their undead, like trapped in their body at death. Not dissimilar from somebody barred from the Marble Orchard. I explored a lot of different types of undead in this book. But the ghoul is somebody who's forced to stay around. They don't have unfinished business. They're cursed to remain, and it twists them. Anyway, so that's what a ghoul is. We got the Gleaners. A couple entries for them. Gutterwhelks and Gutterwell Cords. One of the grossest monsters I wrote because it has one attack. It's called Burrow. And if it inflicts an injury, the injury complication is called It's Inside Me. Really gross stuff. Eats you from the inside out. We got the Hellsnot, which is an ooze. It's a pool of irradiated sludge of what was a person, and the Hellsnot wave for a horde. Got Judge of the West, a giant undead spirit bison that is pretty gnarly, is another boss monster. And it can like pull you down into the blood-drenched soil with bones and the blood of dead animals and stuff. It's really gnarly. We got Junkadoons, Junkadoon Genius and Scrapper. These are like inventors and clockwork people you could fight. The Junkadoon aren't a very violent people, but, you know, Rogue Junkadoon could totally go off their kilter and be using these stats. The classic Kentucky Sawbones, which we're all familiar with, and the Scuttling Arm. The Swarm of Severed Left Arms. The Kilkenny Cat and its Horde, classic critter, walking like a piranha with legs. We got Labor Bots and the various tools they can use to pop your limbs out of their sockets and so forth. The Latish, which is a Swamp Witch, a Were-Gator Swamp Witch. Now this one's really, really cool. So you got stats to fight her, but what's really awesome is that the Latish is a special vendor. It's a threat vendor that you can interact with that has macabre, powerful magics, basically. But the prices you have to pay are gnarly. So it's threat and vendor in one. Super, super neat creature. We got a mutant, which is a giant, not giant, but a big multi-armed mutated person who's dead at this point. They've just become a horror. They can beat you to death and spew irradiated slime on you. We got the Oil Baron, the giant oiler dragon boss monster that is an adventure unto itself. You can't just fight the Oil Baron. You have to get inside and blow it up from the inside. And so this provides guidance to the storyteller about how you can go about planning an Oil Baron encounter, right? How to go and construct this. Oh man, a witch and peasantry is required, dude. We have Old Adlac, which is the Phase Bear from an old collab I did a while ago with August and Anthony and Ryan. Yeah, this is the Phase Bear that I made. It's called Old Adlac. We have the Omen Mock. Mock being an archaic term for a carrion grub. This is like a vulture demon, and it can see your death and see the future. And one of its attacks is it can fixate its gaze on you, and if you don't break its stare in time, you just die. So he's fun. We have the Ormulv, or Wormwolf, which is, we've got art for, basically a big mutated wolf that has a colony of gutter whelks living inside of it with giant leech tentacles that come out as you shoot it, and it's super gross, and it vomits out gutter whelks, and he's just super, super gross. Yeah, Twin Steel's Adventure features a lot of Devil's Breath related stuff. We have the Revenant, your classic, like, cursed ghost of a gunslinger come back for revenge kind of thing, you know, that was going to hunt down a mark. That's the Revenant right there. We've got the Rotten, which looks like a ton of abilities here, but it's because it's a mix and match, pick your own. The Rotten are undead that are created from maladies, like diseases and curses that trap them in a perpetual state of suffering. So what you do is you can roll or pick which malady they're based on. They get a certain feature, and then you just grab the one action, special action they have from that. So this is a build your own, like cursed, undead, disease-ridden thing. So like you could pick Red Lung, which gives them a certain feature, and then it gives them the feature of when you injure them, they spray blood everywhere, which is bad, makes you sick, and they get the spew blood ability that lets them do particular stuff. And these things spread maladies, and diseases and such are extremely dangerous in Clockworld. That's a later section. We have the Seigneur Bayua, which is the Lord of the Swamp. That's a Haitian Creole. Giant mutated gator that swallows you whole using the hazard that's built in the rules called the swallowed whole hazard. Basically, it tries to eat you, and then you have to like cut it up from the inside. But it's just an enormous mutated gator. Big boss monster. We've got a sheriff and their deputy. The sheriff basically has luck like the players do. They have things go their way, which is fun. And there's some guidance on how to do that here. We have the Shrike, which is super gnarly, deadly threat. This one I want to do a whole video on in the lore. But yeah, super gnarly threat. I'll just let you read that one. This thing is going to murder some parties. This thing is going to TPK some parties. We have the Sight for Sore Eyes, which is a floating eyeball, tentacle, winged creature that can mesmerize you. Basically can make you see illusions to lure you into falling into hazards like pits in a cavern or, cliffs and stuff. And they can have a swarm where the swarm has an illusion on what it is. It could look like a cloud coming your way. It could look like a building. The swarm is illusory. Oh, hey, thanks, Bubbly. Thank you so much. Season's greetings and Happy New Year to you, too. We've got the Thresher Bot, giant robot, or not giant, but big, tractor combine that's gone haywire that basically scoops up players and throws them in a mulcher. And Scythes has a big sweeping scythe that either swings at leg height or head height, which is tickles me. Got townsfolk and their angry mob, their horde version, your basic townsfolk. And, they're not deadly, but you get enough of them and they can beat you to death. We have the Warbot, which is another customize, you can have all of these or just one of them. You could pick what weapons they have. They basically have super futuristic weaponry because they're a pre-calamity war machine. They're very hard to hurt, but they overheat and can explode because their technology is ancient and damaged. We have the Wendigo, which is a person who has given into cannibalism. This is evoking like the movie Ravenous. But what's really challenging about these is that their type is person. They don't ping as a horror or anything like that normally, but they live in society, preying on people and such. And they're really gnarly. They carve out pieces of people to eat. And in their stat block, they literally have an attack called Carve, and have a snack. So they're fun. They're fun. Then instead of having a individual entry for each wildlife, like bear and wolf, there's a wildlife section that has guidance overall of... Oh, I just saw Weird West Lawnmower. Yep. So there's a guidance on how to run wildlife. It's very simple. And then it has a wildlife variance table. And so I'll just read the variance. Oh, I see a typo. This needed to be a D12. It says a D4. Typo found. Live on stream. So... you can always just make wildlife more interesting or dangerous by using one of these 12 variants. So we have frenzied, infested, mutated, robotic, skeletal, zombified, demonic, experimental, hybridized, parasitic, oiler, and overgrown. So yes, you can have blood oiler bears that oilers have trained to help them hunt people down. So instead, each simple wildlife entry is just a stat block rather than having a whole 2-page spread for each. And there's a total of 5 wildlife to use. Just very simple stuff, bear, bison, cougar, gator, and wolf. Just simple stuff to get you going. Because wildlife at their base are going to be very simple. And most of them, right, you shoot your gun and it scares away the cougar, right? These aren't meant to be super, super threatening on their own. You're meant to build around them because they're just animals. And, of course, we have the stat blocks for the wolves in sheep's clothing. Yeah, bears are scary. You could have a blood oiler bear. You could also just apply the demonic template to the bear, and now it can talk. Weird stuff like that. So we have the stats for the wolves in sheep's clothing, which are one of the most challenging threats in the book. They just absolutely tear you to pieces. They can read your mind. They can change their form. These are... the big bads. They're not big physically, but they're just so powerful and impossible to get the upper hand on, right? Because they know, they can read the thoughts of everybody near them. It's got guidance on how to use them in a fight. And then the last threat page, last but certainly not least, we have classic zombies and a zombie horde. Has some variants for zombies that if you want to have different variants, the Coal Baron uses explosive zombies in its mechanics that, if you expose them to flame, they detonate. Zombies are actually quite scary because one bite is incredibly hard to treat. Hey, Hendrik. And so just getting bitten once by a zombie is scary enough. So zombies aren't meant to inflict a lot of injuries. You're supposed to be afraid of getting bitten. And I think they communicate that pretty well. Then it has a bunch of guidance on how to make zombies interesting. Simple stat block, but lots of guidance on how to inspire you as to how a zombie outbreak could have happened, and then just unpacking how to use them. The moose in Moose's clothing. And that's all the threats. So quite a few threats, I think. I hope they're a good set. I hope people like them. But it's also really easy to make your own in this system. So then we go into hazards and maladies. Can I plug on the wildlife variants on things like boats? So honestly, Hendrik, the wildlife variants you could apply to bandits if you wanted to. Like you can apply these. These aren't specific to wildlife. Honestly, you could apply these to a lot of places. But it felt like the right place to unpack these sort of like global variance structure here. So hazards and maladies. So these are tools that the storyteller can use. There isn't a rendering guide for every threat. There's descriptions, but not like a fixed stat block for each. I thought about that, by the way, like having a box text for every single one. And honestly, if there ends up being room in the final book for that, that could be cool. But honestly, you hold up a picture of the art because every threat has art. Every single one of these threat pages has art for it, right? So that may be more effective. I don't know. We'll see like page count wise. Like I really want to keep it just a 2-page spread. But honestly, on some of these, there could be a space like maybe up top. We could mess with the layout. I'll talk to the layout designer to see if we can fit that. I'd be happy to write example rendering for each threat. That's a really good point. Mark that down on my Trello board. So hazards and maladies are extra spice that the storyteller can use in a scene to make it more deadly and interesting. So hazards are things like fires and broken glass and smoke, but also things that are active, like falling debris as a hazard, like a cave-in, having dangerous machinery nearby, delirium, like madness-inducing stuff where elsewhere leaks in, has rules for devil's breath, how falling works and how deadly it is, entangling thorns, which is not just thorns, but like barbed wire, how to handle extreme temperatures, etc., etc. So flying debris, how haunting works, a haunting hazard is something you can have, horrifying sights, being swallowed whole, swarms of insects, river rapids, all sorts of fun stuff. Vultures are a hazard, which is fun. Then we move into maladies, which are like diseases and curses. These are long-form consequences that aren't injuries. Do you have dehydration? My throat's kind of drying out. Oh, do I have dehydration as a hazard? Currently, that is handled in the optional starvation, like survival rules that you can use. Because the game doesn't track food and water, it doesn't like account for that. But it has how to do so in the optional rules. No, in game, Peter. Actually, my voice, I start to lose my voice. It's been a long week too, so. But I'm good. We're almost done. We're almost done. So let's see. A demonic wildlife variant of a boat with a haunting is possible? Absolutely. There are some threats that say they have a haunting hazard like around them at all times. The old Adlac, you know old Adlac is in the woods with you because he generates over the mile surrounding him a haunting hazard. While he's dying, he also generates a delirium hazard. So literally reality starts to warp around him over a huge distance. Threats, adding hazards into threats you'll see a lot of that in this book. So yeah, what you're describing you could absolutely do. You could have a mechanical boat like demonic blood oiler that has a haunting hazard radiating from it. That sounds lovely. So maladies, it's a guide on how to use maladies, like when people get exposed to diseases. This is a tool you can use. Some threats work directly with this, like the Arizona tenor has red lung and spreads it. But it's got a handful of maladies here. They're nothing too fancy. It's if you want to use long-term. Peter, your game is batshit and I love it. Me too, man. As a related note, so not all Weird West goes like really hard on the weird horror like this does, and that's something I wanted for this game. It's like weird horror combined with grounded history. Anyway, so it's got a handful of maladies. These, don't consider these like you have to use these all the time as a GM, right? When you're constructing challenges, think about threatening the players with maladies because it can make that scary. You know, when you threaten that they could get exposed to these long-form consequences, it increases the tension. So we have blight, which is a little bit like tetanus. We got brittle bones, which you get from cursed or undead graves. How to construct curses. There's no one-stop shop for curses, so it's like a curse generator. We have the frenzy, which drives you mad, kind of like this is like the Reavers in Firefly. That's the evocation here. Yeah, there's the immersion. No AC in the summer. We have Nahum's Folly, and kudos to anybody who gets this reference when they read that entry. We have Red Lung, which is like super tuberculosis. We have Wriggleworts, which is super gross. By goodness, is this one gross. I just channeled my own fears directly into Wriggleworts. Oh, it's so disgusting. Anyway, when people say, like, wonder should you go swimming in that pool of water near a source of devil's breath, you just remind them that you can catch Wriggleworts from doing so, and they will not dip their toes in. So one of the last sections here, we're coming up on it, guys. Thanks for everybody sticking out, by the way. We've been chugging along here. We have the artifacts. So the artifacts we haven't previewed almost at all before. Artifacts, think of them like legendary magic items. There are no magic items in this game because it's not that kind of world. Let's see. Chad, I'm making a superhero THB based on gritty Golden Age power levels. I'm learning a lot from your game design videos. Thanks for that means so much to hear, man. I love Golden Age and Silver Age comics a lot. I love the evocation of that. I think Zarek may have had to head out. I think he said earlier. I see. Your Weird West is far more on the weird side than the West side, and that's kind of awesome. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'm glad you're finding my videos helpful, Chad. I do love Silver Age comics, and it's why I was drawn to Zarek's game Indominate, because his evocation is very Silver Age. I like heroic heroes. I like them as an idealization rather than the Invincible's a fun show. I'm behind a couple seasons on it, and The Boys was all right at first. Like, it was kind of cool, but like my favorite kind of heroes is more Silver Age. Anyway, artifacts. So artifacts are like super magic items. These are not balanced. It even talks about that in here. These are not balanced at all. They are not meant to be. Some artifacts are way more powerful than others. And some of them are absurd. Some of them are fairly simple. They are not meant to be something you will always hand out. They're weird. They're pre-calamity technology, cursed artifacts, all sorts of wacky stuff. And each one has an entry with lore, a description, and the mechanics. So we'll just flip through them real quick. And this is, so Daniel, the other developer working on this game with me, the lore, Daniel really knocked it out of the park with the lore. He wrote the lore in this section. So we have the Bilker's Spade, Black Lung. Oh, and these are, by the way, artifacts are one of a kind, right? It's never like, I found a +1 Black Lung. No. There's just the Black Lung, which is a shotgun that when you wound people with it, it fills their body with smoke and they suffocate to death. The Wand of Liquefy Face kind of does sound like something I'd put in this game. So we have the Bilker's Spade, Black Lung, Bridge to Nowhere, De Profundis, the Devil's Gamble, Devil's Idle Hand, the Doctrina Oblitus Daemonum, El Dolor. Oh, by the way, there's 3 in here that are super backer on Kickstarter entries. El Dolor is one of them. So El Dolor, which is basically a machete. It's awesome. We have Firefly, which is a jetpack. We have the Hellfire Horseshoe. We've got Hoquanwi Oscan, a cursed hatchet. We've got Igni Sanctus, a flamethrower that you put vials of holy water in, which is awesome. We've got La Chuporosa, which is a 6-shooter that uses your blood to shoot bullets. We've got Old Man's Fair, normal tuberculosis. Yeah. We've got Old Scratch. Kudos to anybody who knows what that reference is. Old Scratch is it's a term. There's a lot of Wild West terms here. No one gets normal sick in Clockworld. Anybody gets sick, you become a monster. We have Peal of Distant Thunder, which is a gauntlet you load shotgun shells into, which I love. We have the Penance Coil, which is a Wonder Woman reference, of course. We've got the Tesla Rifle, which leaks Devil's Breath because it's damaged. Yeah, Igni Sanctus is awesome. So basically, it is a flamethrower that only hurts horrors and undead. People are left unscathed. So yeah, Old Scratch, Peal of Distance Thunder, Penance Coil, the Tesla Rifle, the Eyesore. Okay, so anybody who's watched Alien Earth, I want you to know when you read this entry, I wrote this first. That's all I'm going to say. I wrote the Eyesore before Alien Earth aired. Let it be known. Anyway, for anybody who watched that show, I wrote this first. I have the timestamps. We have the Verba Sancte Crucis, was a holy book. We have the Weight of Sin, which has one of my favorite. So Daniel really crushed it with the lore write-up, because some of these lores are like stories within fiction about it. So the Weight of Sin is a sledgehammer that grows heavier and deadlier the more you kill with it, to the point where you can't lift it. But the last line here, it says, "She swung with what might was left and brought justice down one last time. And there it lay, and there she lay, and then the weight was lifted." It's really good. Good job, Daniel. We have another backer. So Yellow Boy is a rifle that is a reference to a classic real-life firearm, the lever-action rifle. And this is another backer submission. We actually have there's one space here. One of the backers is getting me an artifact at the start of the year, and it will go here of the 3 super backers. And the last section is random tables. I love random tables, not for like determining gameplay or running the game, but for inspiring the game. So this first page is random horrific injury inspiration. And so like, if you want to just add a little spice to normal injuries, there's things like getting a broken jaw, debris in your eye, a cheek torn away, shoulder dislocated, like just different ways to play with the injury system on a big random table, if you want to play around with that. Because you're supposed to just take the injuries and all the attacks as a starting point and build wacky stuff with them. So, like what would it be if you're, let's see, what's a funny one here? If you have debris punctured through your ribs, like how would you resolve that? Yeah, inverted Mjolnir, that's a good point, Twisted Mage. So this is some fun random tables about inspiring you for random injuries. We have random first names and last names that are all kind of Weird West or Wild West evocations. There are multiple hidden references in this table for real life people through history that I've included. We've got a random nickname generator, so you can be like Crooked Mouth or Fast Elk or Wooden Gut. Like it's a way to build random nicknames that I think is really fun. These magic items have inspired me to write the artifacts, because the artifacts aren't meant to be balanced, you're just go nuts with them. Make more of them. So random nicknames, random crimes, which also kind of communicates what types of crimes are punishable by what. So, for example, if you play an outlaw, it recommends you, as a player, roll on this table a few times to determine what you've been guilty of previously. And when you read this, think about the world building that these crimes and their punishments represent. This was very intentional, by the way. What is punishable by what? We have random quest inspiration. Okay, so this is the table I was mentioning earlier about rewarding the players. So this table has types of people like politicians, bankers, rich folk, or saloon or livery owners, or cultists, black market dealers, and lunatics. The types of rewards they could offer the players, whether they're a minor reward, a major reward, or unique reward, and how that's supposed to be presented. You can use this randomly, or, hey, Frank, good to have you around, buddy. So this is meant to guide, if you want to offer a reward to a player, here's some guidance on how to get started with that. Like, if you want to offer a major reward to the players who are working with trappers, hunters, and explorers, you can have them give them a free horses, or even trained wildlife. Like, give them hunting dogs, like wolves, right? Like, you could totally do that. So it's trying to present, like, it's not just $1d6. Some of these do mention cash, because some of these wouldn't give cash, but it's what services, clues, or other features you can get. And some of them, in theory, if you want to give a unique reward, they could give you an artifact. And thank you, Hendrik, about the random tables. So, Twice did. Yeah. So they aren't magic items. Yeah, they're mythological. Each one has a story. Yeah, exactly. And some of them are Yeah, okay, peeling back the curtain a bit on Tales from Elsewhere in general, like as a lore, Elsewhere takes our stories, our myths, legends, as well as our fears and anxieties and dreams, and twists them. That's how these worlds work. That's why there are mythological monsters in them. It's because Elsewhere makes real what is imagined by us. That's Elsewhere. It is a reflection of ourselves and our stories. And it's why so many of these monsters describe them as the myth of a people in the world turned evil, twisted by Elsewhere. So that's very intentional. The way that the Wazte people conceptualize Elsewhere is Alan Wake Core. Yeah. The Wazte people call Elsewhere the empty mirror. That's their conceptualization. It is the mirage on the horizon that deceives you. And Elsewhere manifests itself to them in that way, right? Because it's a reflection of our own beliefs. Anyway, so random nicknames, random crowns, random quest rewards. We got random town locations if you ever need to just randomly determine that. Yeah, Elsewhere it's a lot like the Warp. It's the Warp with a little bit less of a foreign alien gods associated with them, because the wolves in sheep's clothing aren't gods. They're part of this world now. They've been forced into this world. So we got random town locations. The big old random loot table. This is if you want to just randomly give out one piece of equipment in the book. So you can roll a category, right? Do they have ammunition, armor, consumables, curios, etc.? You determine which table to roll on. And then you roll on the subordinate table. These are weighted tables, so some pieces of equipment are rarer than others, intentionally so. You're not very likely to get the flamethrower. And artifacts are not on this list because they'll never be part of random loot. Random curios are just weird junk you can find. I love these. They're just inspirational. Like a coin purse made of a dead rat. A cowbell with a bullet hole through it. Right, just tons of fun stuff. Random trade goods. One of the last tables is... The last table in the book is strange events on the road. Random loot, not move. Oh, was there a typo on here? Did I say random move? Random loot. I'm getting tired, apparently. Okay, last table. This one is a D66 table, a D66 table called Random Events on the Road. This isn't random encounters, like random fights. This is inspiration for you to build from weird and macabre events that you could see. Like, for example, number 21, or 21... Oh, a scuttling arm is found on its own, like the piece of a Kentucky sawbone. It is friendly and beckons the players to follow it around a dark corner. I don't know what story that's going to tell, but you know the players are going to be curious, right? The little severed arm goes like, come on. So tons of weird stuff like this, like... several decayed zombie corpses are strewn about, their teeth all removed. Yeah, D66. I love your tables in Peasantry, by the way, Zachary. You have excellent tables. Oh, yeah, no problem, Twin Steel. I really want to try to play in that adventure if I can. But anyway, so the Strange Events on the Road is a D66 table, which means, 36 entries. It's more world building for you as the storyteller to think of the weird, think of the strange events that you could populate the world with. They're the starting point for a scene, not a scene builder. And then the end sheets of the book is quick reference for the random injury locations and all the conditions you can have, like all the base conditions. So the end sheet is also, if you ever want to look up how being dazed works, you just flip to the last 2 pages and you'll have it right away. And then the back of the book right now is the quote from Hezekiah about what is elsewhere that's in the trailer. And that is the beta. This is the intended complete book we end up going to be producing. There'll be a lot of changes between now and release, a lot of editing and layouts and formatting and changing around the wording probably. Maybe including more and cutting stuff, but that's the book. So we wanted to provide all this to backers because it's going to be months before the book is ready to be released, right? because the artists are making almost 300 pieces of art. So in the meantime, though, this is the fully playable product available for all of you backers. For those of you watching on YouTube that haven't backed, by the way, as of tonight, we are closing late pledges on hard copies of the game. We are locking in hard copy orders because we have to plan for our printing, but you will still be able to pledge PDF tier. We're going to leave that open. The PDF tier gives you access to this beta in PDF as well. But yeah, that is the presentation for today. Well, I've been streaming for almost 3 hours straight now, guys, so I'm going to take a break. Thank you so much, everybody who backed the Kickstarter or just watches the YouTube channel, hangs out in the Discord. It really means the world to me and the TFE team. You're all participating in this. And yes, sign up for games. I haven't checked in on the Discord. We're running tons of games in January. If you missed that part of the stream, there's going to be 11 sessions in January alone run by me and community members. So if you want to play and have the beta, hop in and let's have some fun. All right. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy holidays and all that good stuff. I'm going to log out here and I will catch you all in the Discord server. Have a good one.